Welcome, keep your seminar. Welcome, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, June 6th. It's about 7:30 something p.m. Tonight is a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing and general meeting. We are here in Town Hall in room 206. We have a public hearing tonight and a general meeting, as I said. A few applications and then some other cleanup items. So let's get right into it. The first item on the agenda is continuation of public hearing regarding coastal site plan review number 375 and filling and regrading application number 550 WZ the third 202 Trust FOB for the benefit of M.J. Ziegler, 95 Long Neck Point Road. Proposal to construct a new 4-bedroom single-family dwelling on a now vacant lot, construction of a new driveway, a porch, and a pool, and perform related site-bound activities within a regulated area, including regrading of the property, installation of stormwater management. The 1.41 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the east side of Long Neck Point, approximately 430 feet south of the intersection with Ziggy's Way, and is shown on Assessor's map number 58 as lot number 1-Q in the R1 residential zone. They were here once.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Mrs. Barsanti is going to recuse herself in this application. We have 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. Fantastic. This is a hearing that we opened a couple of weeks ago. We had some issues with the setbacks and the zone and the subdivision overlay on the property. The engineer was nice enough to say he'd pull it and go back and look at it again. And so here we are. You want to bring us up to speed on anything else, Jeremy?
Sure. You may recall last time we talked about the fact that DEEP sent in comments on the application, and this was reviewed by Joe Canis, the outside peer reviewer. He sent comments in April, which were addressed by the applicant. The last remaining issue was map 4145A in the Darien land records refers to special setbacks for this property as well as access restriction line. We have a copy of that, which we'll put into the record for that. And at the last meeting, representatives from SE Minor were here, and there was a question about which of those restrictions apply here and who is to enforce them. So after doing a little research in the intervening weeks, our office looked at not only the map, the deeds, the P&Z minutes, the file from, I think it's 1982, 1983, that time frame. We made the determination that the access restriction area does apply because that was specifically discussed by the commission in its minutes and/or its decision. However, the special setbacks put on this map, which was filed in the land records, would not be enforced by the commission. The commission can take cognizance of it. The applicant has shown it on his map, which is going to show you tonight, review with you. But it is our opinion that it's not for the commission to enforce, but it is for the commission to acknowledge that those exist, and it could be up to others to enforce that restriction on the map in the land records.
Did we get copies of this new stuff?
This was submitted.
Right, this was submitted, brought to our office earlier today. My recollection is the only change since last meeting is the addition of the zoning chart. Can you point that out, the zoning table?
Great.
And they tweaked the access just a little bit to fit in the access restriction area. So they moved the driveway a few feet, and they show both sets of setbacks. The setbacks on map 4145A in the Darien land records. Can you show us where that is?
This inner envelope is the setbacks as shown on 415A, and this outer envelope is the R1 setbacks.
Right.
So I think where we, why don't you introduce yourself? I'm sorry.
Thank you. I was going to say.
Sure.
Please.
Robert Sandolo from SE Minor and Drainage,
We got
engineer of record for this project. If you'd like, I'm happy to go through sort of a quick summary of the whole thing, unless you have specific questions.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we spoke when you were here, when you came and went lickety split, you were going to add this in the zoning text box, what the districts were
Yep.
for the subdivision, or what's on the deed restriction.
Right, so we have added a zoning table that shows existing required and proposed zoning regulations.
Required by who? Required by,
This shows the required for the R1 zone. And then this envelope is the only variation from the R1 zone, which is the more restrictive front, side, and rear yard setbacks from the subdivision map.
so you didn't put that in the text box like you said you were gonna do?
No, the text box just shows the R1 requirements.
Okay, I thought I asked you to put a column with the restrictions for the subdivision, but, I don't know, I guess you didn't. Okay. Okay, so I guess everyone remember we talked about this last time? There's an overlay. The problem with this piece is that there's 13 other lots that are on the market for sale that follow this one. And so this is gonna happen 13 or 14 times. That's the whole Ziegler farm estate that's on the market for sale. So this is the first one out of, I think there's 16 total lots there that are for sale. And this one, the Ziegler family kept, and they sold it in-house to themselves for, I think, $4 million was a recorded number. It's someplace in my briefcase. And they kept the other house. So this is something that the Ziegler family, that's what the FOB is benefiting for themselves. So I would have figured they would have subscribed to their own rules, but I mean, the Ziegler family wants to put the deed restriction on it, and the Ziegler family's building the house. Okay. Go ahead, Stu. Give us your presentation, please.
Sure. Okay, so other than the setback issue, I think what we have before you is relatively straightforward. In the existing condition, we have a waterfronting vacant lot. The western half of the lot is gently sloped lawn area. The eastern half of the lot is more steeply sloped wooded area. There are flood zones. There's an AE14 and a BE14 zone. It is proposed to construct a new single-family residence with a footprint of approximately 4,200 square feet and a total livable area of approximately 5,800 square feet. We have our new driveway entrance that is compliant with map number 4145A. That leads us to our front parking court, two-car garage and front door, obviously. We do have a walkout basement that leads to the proposed pool site. The pool will be fitted with an auto cover. Beyond the pool site, we have the existing / proposed edge of lawn. So there's no proposed work beyond that existing edge of lawn line. So what we'll be left with is essentially a 110-foot naturally vegetated buffer area down to the water. The only proposed work that we are looking to do in that area is remove some barbed wire fencing and one single tulip tree that has been observed to be dying and dropping branches. This was actually brought to our attention by, I believe, this southerly neighbor. The stormwater network is simple but effective. We have two Coltex systems. The front one, located beneath the motor court, will infiltrate runoff from the front roof area and the driveway area. The rear Coltex system will infiltrate runoff from the rear roof. We're reducing peak flows and volumes in design storms. We have the comment memo from DEEP stating that we're compliant with coastal policies. We got the comment memo back from the consulting engineer stating that we addressed his comments and he had no further comments. And I think that it just about covers it. If you have any more questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Do we have plans for the house on this one?
I don't think they've submitted actual detailed house construction plans yet. This just shows the footprint.
I
Or did you?
thought we submitted them in our very first submission.
Could be.
Yeah.
But the house has not changed from the first submission.
Right.
Let's see here.
And they're from Matthew Doherty, the architect.
Oh, yeah, that's the note. So it's a 4-bedroom house, if I recall?
It's a 4-bedroom house, 5,800 livable, 4,200 footprint.
Yes.
I think we're at 6.86% building coverage as compared to a 20% allowable. So they're not looking to really go very big here.
Of the last meeting when you were here for just a short while, did you move the house at all? Did you change anything?
We were prepared to adjust the house. I think in some correspondence that was happening between, I guess, planning and zoning, the client's attorney, and I guess the town attorney, it was determined that the subdivision setbacks, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, weren't enforceable by the town of Darien, but the driveway location was. So ultimately it was decided to leave the house as is, but move the driveway to meet the requirements of the subdivision map.
I'm not a lawyer, but that doesn't make any sense to me. If the subdivision map says this is what subdivides, what you're gonna do, and then you don't subscribe to the subdivision map?
No, because they're private restrictions, so it's a civil suit between neighbors, it's not for town enforcement.
Okay. He's a lawyer. That's what
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, I know nothing about that. I haven't seen the background.
I mean, unless it wasn't a condition of the subdivision, was it?
It was not.
Yeah,
If it was a
just-
condition of the subdivision, it would have been clear
It's
cut.
just
Right.
a-
And the driveway entrance was a condition of the subdivision, I believe.
Gotcha. So it's up to the neighbors to enforce it. It seems silly, though, like you said, to
It's gonna have a
create
13
the
times,
restrictions
yeah.
and then violate them right out the gate. I mean, they're gonna.
Right.
The neighbors are people that haven't purchased homes.
Correct.
Well,
Right.
there's a homeowners association. There's 13 lots on this side, and there's 5 houses across the street. Wait, you know where the triangle
Yeah,
is like
yeah,
this?
I know where it is.
1, 2, 3. It goes 1, 2, and then 2 more, which is 5. So those 5 houses exist. On the other side of the street, which is this side of the street,
Nothing.
there's nothing.
Yeah.
So there's like 18 houses in the homeowner association, which is, there's 5 on one side of the street, which the 5 houses exist today, and there's 13 on the other side of the street.
So it's up to the 5, right, to object to this, because if they don't, somebody who, I mean, in theory, would it be possible to purchase the lot on the northern side that is not built, and then turn around and say, this built home violates the agreement of the subdivision, you have to tear out the pool and the front of the house?
So when the next 13 lots are there, right? And then lot number 9 sells.
Right,
Can lot number 9 sue lot number 14? It's
exactly,
house
in the
violence.
future.
Anybody can sue anybody. I mean, that's the problem with the legal system. But the reality is it sort of cuts the other way, right? If they try and enforce this against any other lot and they've already violated it, how would you enforce it?
Right.
How can they turn around to another purchaser and say, no, you can't build there because of the subdivision rules,
Right.
when they just violated them blatantly? So, I mean, it cuts against the developer on this property,
Right, which is the,
the Zieglers.
right.
Right.
See-
Just seems silly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about the other 13 that are on the market for sale. It's on the market for sale for $85 million. It's not, it's public knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, everybody knows it.
But that means that those private restrictions aren't gonna be enforced in the future.
Correct.
And those were not a condition of the subdivision.
They
So
were not. We read through
we
the
have-
file, we read through the minutes, read through the approval. And that's why it does seem odd that the access restriction applies, but not the setbacks, is because
It was specifically in the approval.
specifically talked about
Yeah,
versus when the applicant said, hey, we're putting special setbacks on our property. P and Z didn't write it up like, hey, but they,
normally,
sua sponte, did it to themselves.
right.
Put the restrictions on, nor is the town the beneficiary of these.
Right.
It doesn't say in the land records, and the town to enforce.
Right.
in a normal, if we were to do a new subdivision today, though, we would make it a condition that would then be enforced in the future. So it's possible they intended to do this back in '82, and it was just an oversight at the time from a 40-year-old.
It could have been. That's
Decision.
correct.
I mean, like Hans Mendes with Pear Tree Point School,
Yeah.
I'm 90% sure there's a legit box just like this.
Yeah.
It says the house has got to be inside
That's
that
what
box.
I remember that one, and we put all kinds of stuff on there, especially with access across the street to the dock to get into the water and stuff. So like, I get we're not supposed to enforce it, but it seems like this is just a lawsuit if we say yes.
That's the way I look at it.
Against us? Or what?
Well, it's definitely against P and Z if it gets denied, because that we're enforcing the subdivision if we're not supposed to enforce it. I mean, that's the way I look at it, but I'm,
No, as long as it's within the R1 setbacks, we're not at fault.
right, which yeah, I'm saying, but if we enforce this box,
Yeah, we can.
We can't. I thought we already resolved that.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not for us to do.
Then you have a memo, you're gonna get a memo from
I
town
could
council?
certainly talk to, town council and I spoke verbally numerous times about this. We did each independent research review, discussed it verbally. Fred was there when we discussed it earlier this week, came to the same conclusion.
Okay.
Can we put the 82 minutes in this application as part of the
We
file?
can certainly put the maps in. If the commission wants the minutes as well, we could do that. Of those,
That's fine.
we'll put the minutes and the approval as well.
Yeah.
Okay. The P and Z minutes, I think there's 3 sets of minutes, if I recall, 3 or 4, and the approval in record.
So what's this gonna do to the other 13 lots?
It's gonna be a nightmare.
I'm not gonna be here.
Well, in
They're
theory,
not building 13 lots in 2 years, my term's up in 2 years.
in theory, it may benefit the other landowners to not have to meet the more restrictive setbacks.
Doesn't benefit the 5 people across the street that they built their houses.
But maybe they can expand where they thought they couldn't.
They're not here, right?
I mean, yeah, I'll
We'll ask. We'll find out.
Okay. Anything else, question from you guys?
No, straightforward. Can you just go over the grading?
Yeah, sure. There's not a lot of earthwork happening. I think the architect actually did a good job designing the house and working with the land. The walkout, because we have the walkout basement, there's not a lot of cut or fill happening. There's some minor grading happening maybe within 20 feet of either side of the house. There's some minor grading happening along the proposed driveway entrance, but otherwise, the majority of the lot is not being changed. There was a previous comment about stormwater impact on the northern neighbor. So we did add this swale to intercept any flow that would be heading in that direction, and it would be minimal, but we did add a small swale anyway to just capture any runoff heading north and redirect it to the sound. And there's no proposed grading happening on the steep slope, and otherwise it's essentially existing grades everywhere.
What do you, oh, good, you had a question, George, right?
I just wanted to be sure, this is an auto court, I guess, the part that does in fact go over the R1 zone, front yard? Is that the?
Yes,
is that
yeah,
just
that's
another
the front motor court.
with just Belgian block or something?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a bonus room above the garage.
I'm not sure.
ADU?
Right, I don't know. Little bit below. Okay. Just talk to me about the front wall out front. You already blasted through the rock wall and took down the wrought iron fence, so that's already gone. You already started to put the driveway in.
Right,
What's going on
so
with
the
rock
portion
wall?
of the wall and fence was removed to get access. We did have to conduct deep tests for drainage design, so we need to get access in there. And at the time, the thought was that would be the proposed driveway entrance, so that was where we chose to go in. But obviously now we'll be here and that will be reconstructed, put back together. There's no proposed fence at this point along the front property line.
So where did you break through the rock wall today? Where is it broken through now?
It's probably right about here, right in the middle, more or less.
Okay. So you're gonna close that one off?
Yeah, this will not be an entrance, this will be the only entrance.
So you're gonna close that curb cut off, which is a fake curb cut, and then put in
Right.
another curb cut?
Yeah, that was just a temporary
I got it.
access.
Okay. I mean, it's not a whole lot, I don't agree with it, but, what do I know? Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application? Nobody.
Somebody in the back.
There's 6 people, and no one saying anything. Okay, anything we're missing? Okay.
No?
Nope. Entertain a motion to close? Mike makes a motion. Adam makes a second. Hearing's closed.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Can you guys pass those plans back down here, please?
I would double check the size of what he quoted, because this says a different size.
Well, when we,
It says 2,775.
we'll take a look at that.
He's got 5, maybe that's just one for
Trying to get a good fold for you.
you. You're a Boy Scout. Speaks out in the
Oh,
Boy
yeah.
Scouts.
Do we want the application back too?
Yeah, please.
Any reason why we can't keep them?
Why don't you send it to us next week?
If you'd like copies for your files, I can make copies.
Yeah. Send it to him. Send it. Don't mind my files.
Yeah, right? Say what?
Steve's garage.
This, I think
That's why we have Steve's garage. That's the copy.
What's that? Man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff in my garage. I'm supposed to go to the dump this weekend, but it didn't. Across the
Used to
stairs.
go directly to recycle them.
Yeah, Kim and Cunningham used to go right to that barrel as soon as he said, "What's your clothes?" Boom.
All right,
Here you go, sir.
Thank you.
it's all in the record.
All right, next item on the agenda, continuation of public hearing regarding flood damage prevention application number 438, land filling and regrading application number 546, Joshua and Shari Soloway at 9 Crane Road. Proposal to construct a new 4-bedroom, single-family dwelling, construction of a new driveway, retaining walls and terrace and porch areas, and to perform related site development activities within a regulated area, including the regrading of the property and installation of stormwater management. The 1.2 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the west side of Crane Road, approximately 630 feet east-south of its intersection with Pear Tree Point Road, as shown on Assessor's map number 60 as lot number 32 in the R1 residential zone. Gentlemen, what do we got?
You may recall at the last hearing, it was continued to tonight to allow engineer Jim Kasudas to address some of the concerns of the neighbors who were hiring Craig Flaherty of Redness Mead to review the application. Mr. Kasudas has received Mr. Flaherty's comments and has asked that we immediately continue tonight's hearing to Tuesday, June 27th, 3 weeks from today at 7:30 PM in this room, which would give him time to pull together revised plans, address Mr. Flaherty's concerns, letters received from other neighbors, get that out, give the neighbors time to respond to that, and resume the hearing 3 weeks from tonight, Tuesday, June 27th. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so that's gonna be, you can also respond, besides Craig's letters, you get one from Aldo and then one from the Steins.
Yes, the Steins wrote a letter, the neighbor directly to the south. Aldo Criscolo, who also lives in the neighborhood, wrote a letter. The Arringtons were here last time as well, voicing their concerns. So Mr. Kasudas is reviewing all that information, trying to address it.
Okay. Anything else, bud? You good?
That's it. The next one is mine too, that's why.
That's why you stand, you bring your big leather case.
Yep.
Okay, so that hearing is continued for 3 weeks. All right, next item on the agenda, continuation of public hearing regarding coastal site plan review number 376 and land filling regrading application number 551, RRE Holdings LLC at 244 Long Neck Point Road. Proposal to construct a 20 feet by 50 feet in-ground pool on the southern portion of the site, perform related site development activities within a regulated area, including the regrading of the property, installation of stormwater management, and connecting the main residence main residence and cabin on the property to sanitary sewers in Long Neck Point Road. The 1.13 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the west side of Long Neck Point Road, approximately 0.44 miles south of its intersection with Tree Point Road, and is shown on Assessor's map number 61 as lot 13-8 in the R1 residential zone. Gentlemen, what do we got? More letters.
Yep.
Or we
You
got
may
this
recall
today.
that one of the outstanding issues last time for the construction of the pool was a letter from Director of Health David Knopf with his concern about the fact that the pool would be going in generally where the septic system is. Professional engineer Jim Casudis has reached out to Mr. Knopf, and I believe they've come to an agreement with a number of conditions, potential conditions of approval, which would address David Knopf's concerns relative to the septic system. Those are contained in the June 5th letter from Jim Casudis. Mr. Casudis is here tonight to run through how we addressed Mr. Knopf's concerns, which I think were the only remaining concerns from the last hearing.
As far as, Jim Casudis Engineering, yes, last time, I believe, that was the feedback from the commission, to go back to Mr. Knopf and iron out his concerns about excavating in the old septic leaching fields. That's what I did. I reached out, we sat down, it was a very productive, fairly brief meeting. I basically described to him what I had in mind, and I shared it with you guys 2 weeks ago. He agreed with that. We added a couple of additional technical items to it, and I think ended up being an 8-item excavation sequence that was adopted, was approved or looked good to Mr. Knopf. Sent an email over to Fred Dunite on Monday and asking if this could be a part of the condition of approval of the application. And so we're back here with that item ironed out and ready, yes, for your approvals.
So this is the one where I thought the bad soil would go to West Virginia, right?
Yes.
That's what he said was this though. And he wants to keep it on site. They're gonna build it on the pile and put it back in the hole where it came from.
Correct.
Okay. But so we left it to the Board of Health to figure it out.
Right, and I
that's done.
think what's interesting when you read through Jim's letter here is being sensitive to Mr. Knopf's concerns, and in terms of, because it's unusual for this to occur where you're building over an existing septic system. So his concern was just taking care to make sure you're not gonna cause any problems going forward.
Correct. And the conversation mostly had to do with, and I don't want to get graphic, but basically it's an active system, if we can call it that, so they may be effluent. So one of the conditions there were to call the health department and our office to make sure that before they dig, we go out there, we inspect the situation. We don't want to make a mess of Long Island Sound or anybody else's yard. So that's what that letter addresses. There'll be pumping of the old septic systems. Before any excavation begins, both the boathouse and the residence will be connected to public sewers. And beyond that point, we'll take whatever measures we need to address what's in the letter.
Just out of curiosity, does rainwater get into the septic system? Because didn't you say the house was not occupied in like over a year? So you said, you just called it active, but I thought it was like not active for a year.
Well, active meaning there's no other alternative means. Anytime you turn on the faucet, it goes into the septic system. It hasn't been connected to the sewer yet. Normally, in a situation like this, the septic system will be inactive for years. But right now, it's called active because that's the only means of discharging sewage.
But we're guessing that there has not been a toilet flushed in that house in over a year.
I would have to guess the same thing, yes.
But I wouldn't guess that.
No,
People that come and go, they were sold recently.
no, I thought it was empty for a year. Okay. Any questions for this gentleman? Okay. Entertain a motion to close?
But just check, I
I'm
don't think
sorry, I'm
anyone's.
sorry, any neighbors, anyone from the general public wants to speak to this application? Seeing none, entertain a motion to close. Mike makes a motion, Andy makes a second, all in favor? Hearing's closed, so we can make this letter and the subject, what you put here in the note.
Condition.
Yes, we'll make all of these conditions of approval.
Correct, because we don't have a correspondence from, this is from.
Oh, we got it last time, the packet from last time. It was his letter dated May 10th.
No, I'm saying we didn't get a letter from Knopf saying that's fine by me.
We actually did,
But you got it? Okay.
David Knopf sent me an email a day or two ago indicating that he was okay with the conditions that were proposed, yeah.
Cool, okay, great. All right, next time up for bid. Special permit application number 261-A, 777 Boston Post Road LLC, Trizia Jewelry at 770 Boston Post Road. Proposed to establish a new 220 square foot custom jewelry design studio in a portion of the first floor formerly occupied by Allstate Insurance Company. The 0.23 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the southeast side of Boston Post Road, approximately 100 feet north of the intersection of Sedgwick Avenue, and shown on Assessor's map number 16 as lot 106 in the design district zone. Jeremy, Fred, what do we got?
Yeah, so this application was submitted in conformance with section 1000 under special permit review. This is, as commission members recall, the property basically on the corner of Sedgwick Avenue and the Boston Post Road. The applicant that is here this evening, Patricia, runs a custom jewelry business called Trizia Jewelry. And she would like to occupy an approximately 220 square foot space for her design studio. The property is located in the design business zone, and commission members will recall that we've had several conversations regarding the design business zone and how we want to handle that going forward. Currently, in the zoning regulations, commercial sales and services are a permitted use by special permit that may or may not require outdoor activity. This particular use does not require any sort of outdoor activity. The parking regulations relative to this type of retail business is 1 parking space per 200 square feet. As I said, she would like to occupy approximately 220 square feet. So we would call that 2 parking spaces, essentially, that would be required by this business. There are, from what we understand of the situation and the material submitted, approximately 6 to 7 parking spaces out front. However, there are additional spaces in the building, including residential apartments on the upper floor, as well as some additional commercial vacant space on the first floor. Patricia is here this evening to answer any questions that you may have regarding the operation of her business.
Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Just state your name and affiliation for the record.
My name is Monica Patricia Rospigliosi, and I'm the owner and the sole employee of my business.
Okay.
I do design jewelry and sell jewelry and accessories like handbags, clutches, and I sell my jewelry over my website, through my website. And I also, I wanted to be in this area because my jewelry used to be sold by a store, and they did very well. That is closed now. The name was Kirby and Company. That was on Post Road too. So I always, wanted to be in an area like that, like this. I used to be in South Norwalk, but it wasn't really the area that for my designs that are more for an area like this, or Greenwich, New Canaan.
Yep.
Because I used to boutiques, small boutiques used to sell my jewelry very well. So, and I don't, I'm not a craftsman. I design my jewelry. My jewelry is made in South America and other countries too. They are shipped by DHL, and I really won't use this space mainly to, I think it will be more to expose my designs for local customers
Okay.
to try and also,
So somebody
Also
come into your store, park out, someone come into your store, park out front, help you design, they say, this is what I'm thinking, and you design it for them, and then
yes, but
once they sign up, you ship it to the craftsman and they build it?
yes, but right now I'm not doing that. It's just I do collections every like twice a year, sometimes 3 times, and that's how I sell. They are sold on my website, but I'm not planning actually, because this is my, I have another. I'm also an interior designer.
Okay.
So, but this is my passion, so I want to continue doing it and also be in an area that, is going to be appreciated,
So will people come to your location and pick up their jewelry that they ordered or purchased?
No, because I will actually ship. I mean, that's what I usually do. I work right now out of my apartment, but if someone that I don't know wants to come and see it, I really don't give an access. So that's
Great.
why I would like to have a space that I can also use it as an open studio gallery. Like a few days a week, customers can come and look at the jewelry or the accessories, try it on, look at the quality, and then be comfortable to purchase, online. Mm-hmm.
So you will have customers coming into the store then, right?
Yes, I mean, maybe that will be as an by appointment.
Right.
But the days that I would like to propose to have an open studio will be Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the other days by appointment, if I need to meet a customer. But the other days will be just for people to come and see it. But I don't think that, I'm not planning to have a lot of people at the time.
You're allowed
Because
to.
I just by myself,
Yeah, you're allowed to.
doing
That's okay.
everything, yes.
So it's it's only 220 square feet. The house is what, 3,000 feet? It's the white two-story house.
It's former Allstate office,
Yeah.
right? Used to be
Yes.
Allstate, so there's space on the first floor. Maybe it's a total of, in the assessor records, 2,000 square feet on the first floor. It wasn't that much.
16 or 1,800.
Yeah. And then there's residential on the upper floor.
Right.
You have in part of your packets on the last page, comments from the fire marshal. There'll probably have to be some interior work done. So, yeah, you can see here on the assessor's card, maybe it's 1,000 square feet total on the first floor, maybe.
I have 1,300 square feet.
13?
Yeah, so we're talking 120, 220, it's a room.
Yeah, it's small, basically the size of this podium.
Okay.
Enough for a desk and a place to show some jewelry.
And they drew the 220 square feet on the plan. Okay. I got it. Any questions? You want to go first? You're a woman, where's your one thing? You're a potential customer, you know.
I'm good. All set.
George?
I would like to be clear on the parking arrangement. I've never actually quite understood the parking of that building. I've seen it for years. Are there two, call them, I guess, perpendicular to the front of the building? Or are there more than two that you could fit in the front of the building?
There are six.
Six?
Six.
Oh, there's six,
Six
okay.
cars.
In
can
front of
be
the
fit
building, okay.
In front of the building.
And then along the side, is there more parking there?
Yeah, there is. I think there is a garage.
Uh-huh.
Yes, on the left side.
Is that an
That
active
the,
garage?
Tenant is using.
The tenant is, so
Yes.
you can't block that?
One part.
Okay.
Yes.
And behind the building, is there more parking?
No.
Okay. Okay, that's an education for me. I didn't realize there were that many.
That's the garage, that's the driveway.
Yeah.
I think the Democrats used to have that as their headquarters a couple of times.
Oh, they would have needed a much bigger space.
Touche, good answer, Richard.
Tons and tons of volume going through our office.
There you go.
Absolutely. Good, by me, thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Mike? Okay. Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application? Looks like the landlord missed one. Anything else we're missing? Entertain a motion to close?
No. Yep.
Amy makes a motion. Mike makes a second. All's in favor? Thank you. We'll get back to you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I think we'll deliberate this. Are we having deliberations?
Either tonight or next week,
Yeah.
and hopefully a decision by the end of June.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a good night.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the public hearing tonight, so now we're gonna go into the general meeting. The first time on the general meeting is amendment of business site plan number 246A, special permit, Darien Library, 1441 Boston Post Road, request to finish additional space in the basement.
I was going to say, you may recall, but many of you were not on the commission when the library was first approved for this site back, I guess it's about 10 years ago now, with special permit use in that zone, and it was a very specific approval relative to how much of the building would be used for active space and storage space, especially relative to the basement. Kara Parrott, who is the executive director of the Darien Library, is here to answer any questions. But basically what they're doing is taking a very small area of the basement and using it for a staff office. It would not even be noticeable to the public, but it is a slight change to what was approved by the commission when the building was constructed. So I mentioned to Kara that it would need an amendment of the original special permit, and she's here tonight to fill in the gaps, which are covered, the proposal is covered in her May 23rd letter with associated floor plans from Neil Howe, architect.
Congratulations on your new job.
Thank you.
The other gentleman was the executive director with the double-breasted suits, used to come here all the time.
Yes, Alan.
Yeah, very nice guy.
Yes, yes.
So you used to go. Why don't you introduce yourself and for the record and who you are, and just speak over this real quick.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kira Parrott. As Jeremy said, I'm the director at the Darien Library. And yes, what we're aiming to do is exactly as described. We have about 4,000 square feet or so of unfinished basement. We use it to store, books and supplies and assorted stuff. And we need more office space. We have staffers who are, quite literally on top of each other. And during COVID, we allowed some of these staffers to kind of take over some public spaces because the building wasn't as busy. And we thought, all right, this kind of temporarily solves this issue of staffing. But now we are very, very busy again. And we actually need that space back. And we want to give the staff appropriate area. And we have this unfinished basement. So I think the important thing to note is that this, like our staff lounge that we had come before this body a couple of years back for a permit amendment for, just like the staff lounge, this is for staff only. There will be no members of the public allowed in these spaces. We're not doing programming or any sort of events in these spaces, so we don't, anticipate that, the public demand and sort of traffic to the library will increase in any perceptible way.
We like active libraries.
Yes, we do too. And actually, if you were to visit the library right now, I would guarantee every space and study room is fully in use because all of the seniors and kids are there studying for finals. So there is not a table to be had at the library this evening.
The juniors aren't, because I know they're home at my house. Thank you. Any questions for this? It looks like they're finishing 1,300 square feet out of 4,000 in the basement. Part of that, almost 800 is going to be square for the offices, and I guess the other 500 is going to be devoted to storage for the books. And libraries, paper activities.
I assume there's no, all safety and fire egress.
Yeah, they would need a
whatnot.
building permit to do this work, and that, as part of that building permit, the fire marshal and building official will take a look.
Access and other purpose.
She asked my question.
There you go. Good.
I'm gonna abstain because I actually sit on the library board.
Really?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So I get a Monday, Tuesday whammy next week.
Sorry, Mike.
Any questions, George?
No.
Fantastic. All right, this is a general meeting item, so we can just call for a vote right now. Someone make a motion to approve this request? Amy makes a motion, Adam makes a second, all those in favor?
4-0, one abstention.
Good luck.
Thank you all. Thank you very
You get to use
much.
dedicated lounge in the basement.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good job.
They
5 minutes of fame.
That's space too.
Get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay, next item on the agenda. Amendment to business site plan number 302, special permit application number 302, Corbin, Baywater Corbin Partners, Boston Post Road, and Corbin Drive. Request to amend the previously approved plans. Looks like Corbin District is coming back. That's the Corbin District right there? Wow. It's changed since I last saw it.
Shameless.
That looks like Big
Got it
Sky
all
if
high.
it's me.
Genevieve, you're shameless.
They should teach you 79 gets that on.
You gotta get there in the winter time, summer.
Can't afford it anymore.
I was there this winter, it's significantly more expensive
Yeah.
than 2 years ago.
I know, it's been a while.
So it's a general meeting, I was just say your name for the record.
Sure, David Genovese, Baywater Properties, Baywater Corbin Holdings. So I'm here tonight, we did this last year, I think it was about a year ago. We had to come as the project has evolved. It's, as you know, I think most of you know, some of you were involved in the original text amendment, some of you were involved in the original site plan application. Last year, we came back with some adjustments to the plan just based on market feedback, construction cost issues, different things that came about, further time to reflect upon the project. I'm here tonight to really talk about 5 different points that I think are relatively minor. I hope you agree. First is some adjustments to the parking garage. We're actually increasing the number of spaces, and decreasing the size of the project again. So I think that, that should be relatively straightforward, but I'll walk you through it. The second is to formally request a modification to our affordable housing requirement, which you may want us to come back with more specifics, but I wanted to plant the seed with you and start the dialogue. Amy Montemuro from Ableist, the president of Ableist, is here with us tonight also, in case you have questions for her. Section 3 is something we touched on last year, the possibility of seasonally closing Market Street so we can have more of a public plaza and more of a car-free zone, which we think could be really magical and really great place. And I'll take you through that idea in more specifics, because we presented a lot of things to you last year, and for some reason this one was talked about. I don't think there was a negative view on it, but it didn't get into the approval. And so as we work through the next details and finalize leases with tenants, we want to make sure we don't commit to something that we can't provide. 4, hot topic today, we want to talk about EV charging and some additional EV charging that we'd like to incorporate into the project. And lastly, 5, we have a tenant that is like a med spa, but run by a dermatologist from Greenwich, who operates in Greenwich in a similar location on Lewis Street, right off Greenwich Avenue. She wants to be on Corbin Drive in one of the spaces that I think it's Everything Rosie will relocate from when we complete phase 2 and we move Rosie to the Post Road. So those are my issues.
Just as an aside, the Bank of America building came out great.
Thank you so much. We're really happy with it. I hope you're getting the positive feedback that we're getting. I usually get the positive and the negative. It's been like 99% positive, so I hope you're all getting the same thing. People seem very happy with the scale of the buildings. And the market response, I might as well give you an update while I'm here. The market response to the product has been phenomenal. You know, the apartments have leased basically before they were completed. It's a broad range of people. It's a really interesting group of people. It's, you know, younger couples, I'd say 15% younger couples that can't buy a house because there's just no inventory and they're struggling to find something. 50% or more, 55% the empty nesters we expected. And then the balance, 35% or so, grandma and grandpa coming back from wherever, Puerto Rico, Boston, Florida, Chicago, to be near a daughter usually and grandchildren. I don't know what that says about moms and sons. They don't want to be as close, I don't think. I don't know, but it's, I think in every case, actually there's one woman who is probably going to come whose son lives up the street. But the retail's now fully leased. We're already leasing the spaces that, you know, the 3 tenants who come from Post Road to Corbin Drive will relocate. And we're leasing phase 2. Phase 2 has an office component. We've already shaken hands or gone to lease for half of the office building, which is really incredible. And we'll be probably 70-75% pre-leased on the retail before we start. So expect to see the Bank of America building come down in about 2 weeks. The old Bank of America building. The power's going to go off on Thursday, and then we'll be able to finish the remediation. And then sometime between June 22nd and the end of June, all of the retail tenants on the Post Road will relocate to Corbin, and then we can finish the remediation of those buildings and take the Post Road buildings down, including 10 Corbin Drive.
Because everybody saw the new buildings on the Memorial Day Parade.
Yeah.
And it was a nice showcase.
Well, the interesting thing, I mean, again, because what we always say, like, you guys do a lot of zoning. It's nice to talk about the planning. The whole effort here, the intense effort we applied to like work together to make Darien downtown more pedestrian friendly. You know, adding the crosswalks, creating those cut throughs from Corbin Drive into the municipal parking lot. We are spending a lot of time thinking about what tenants go where, because certain tenants drive traffic that helps other tenants. So for example, specifically the granola bar has created a whole new dynamic in that connection from Corbin Drive into the parking lot. And like Sail to Sable is saying that, believe it or not, they relocated from the Post Road into a nicer sort of spiffier store, but that their sales doubled moving to Corbin Drive, which is not what we would have expected yet. We would have thought that happened when we finished the other side of Corbin or the other stores opened up.
They're on the corner.
They're on a corner, but you know, they don't have the same visibility. So it's just interesting. I think Barrett bookstores sales have gone up. Granola bar's off to a great start. So, you know, and you can I urge you to like look around. I know a lot of you walk around downtown. You'll see traffic patterns, foot traffic's changing. You look down like between 1020 or Gopher and the Bank of America building, like that little architectural thing, that view corridor you get where the little turn in the buildings, it's just cool. It kind of draws you in. And so it's the placemaking that we all kind of strove for is working. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It's a collective effort. Like I say, it takes a village. This is the result of a lot of people, so I get way too much credit.
Okay. Garage and building D.
Garage and building. So, as you may recall, in the corner, and my screen, my pointer won't point to it, but this building D, what we call building D, this included in the original plan a 12,000-foot anchor store. You may recall it's going to be LL Bean. We've had other tenants that have talked to us about that space. Other tenants that have talked to us about that space. There's two things going on here. I've made a commitment to the town to, really that's the gateway tenant for the project. I don't want to rent that. We don't want to rent that to, some tenant just because they're the only 12,000-foot tenant we can find. I'll make up an example. No offense to anyone on TV, but like Ulta. If we put Ulta as the gateway tenant into downtown across from the Darien Sports Shop, I think that'd be kind of a bummer. So what we're finding is that we don't really like the larger tenants that we're seeing. And the bigger tenants, there's not as many of them out there that we think would be appropriate for downtown Darien. So that, coupled with the fact that the parking, when we dug into the parking, underground parking costs, we're good with the creation of the underground parking, but we're finding that in the areas where there are no buildings atop the underground parking, the weight of those buildings effectively, because of the structure through the parking garage, holds the, believe it or not, this is like an inverse of a swimming pool. Some of you remember this conversation. It's the opposite of a swimming pool. You were building a waterproofed basement. It doesn't have continuous pumping water into the drainage system. The weight of the buildings holds the tub down in a way where you don't have weight in all these open plaza areas. We have to do we have to install what are called rock anchors. They're very time consuming to install and they're very expensive. And when we did the first calculation, this was a little bit of a surprise to Kate Perez and me. Kate's our project manager. The engineer said, holy Toledo, like that's gonna take like 11 months or something to install all the rock anchors. And it's gonna cost, another $5 million. That's expensive. So we looked at basically adjusting the parking and we came up with an idea. Sorry, let me just hit the numbers. In the original approval, we had 805 parking spaces in the whole project. That's from the original site plan approval. Last year when we tweaked it, we increased the parking spaces by 36, so we went to 841. That was the approval that we had of last year, April of 22. What we want to do is remove the garage that's highlighted in red here, in all these red areas, and add this little wing to the structured parking and pull this garage up so it's not 13 feet below grade, but 5 feet below grade and out of the water table, so it can be slab on grade. It lowers our costs pretty considerably. It doesn't compromise the parking. Here's another view of it. So we're removing all of that red, getting rid of the garage in those areas, and basically adding an additional wing to the structured parking garage.
So it's not parking space, you're not shrinking the size of the retail store.
We are also shrinking the size of the retail store because we're adding that wing. If you look up there.
You're not shrinking the envelope box. You're pushing the garage into
Correct.
the
We're
retail
pushing the
store.
garage into the box.
Okay.
So what's interesting and what's happening is we're actually reducing our total retail square footage again, and we're increasing our parking count from last year. So it's creating excess parking, which in our view, I won't torture new commissioners with the dialogue we had years ago of the possibility of driverless cars, and Elon Musk says it's still there, it's still possible. It's not happening at the rate or the speed with which we might have thought, so we gotta make sure we have enough parking, because if we don't have enough parking, people aren't gonna be that happy, and we're gonna hear it, and you're gonna hear it. So these are two tables that compare last year to this year, and as you can see, we're taking the total retail in the whole project down from 80,310 feet to 71,523 feet. We're taking the restaurant area down from 24,190 to 23,086. We're taking the office down from 81,610 usable feet to 79,000 feet. And we are changing the mix. The residential square footage is going down a little. We're changing the mix, so we're going from 28 one-bedrooms to 33 one-bedrooms, and 84 two-bedrooms to 79 two-bedrooms, but our unit count's staying the same. So, the punchline to it all is we're making adjustments really based upon what we perceive as a more likely space that can be rented to something we will feel is appropriate and you'll be proud of on the post road at the entry to the project. And we're increasing the parking count. Actually, here's a table that just shows the whole thing. Originally, we had 805 parking spaces in this original approval in 17. We went up to 842 spaces, and we're gonna go up again to 844. Now, we might lose, to be candid though, we might lose like a couple of spaces for storage, we might lose a couple of parking spaces. One of the restaurant tenants, and we'll come back and talk about it if we have to, but like some of the restaurant tenants, because we don't have any real storage areas, have said, where can we store like linens and things like that? Not garbage, but other stuff. We plan for garbage and grease traps and all that, but outdoor furniture, where are we gonna store it? So we're trying to figure that out. If we can do it off-site, we will, but we may wanna chew up a couple of spaces, but
now, we talked about this, I don't know, 5 years ago, the way you designed the garage, I think the floors are flat in case someday you convert them to office or retail.
We ended up
Are you
scrapping
doing
that.
that with this space?
No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna keep it simple.
So it could never get converted to retail?
No, but now, you know, look, we're gonna just take the view that maybe it'll just be storage space in the future. You know, who knows, maybe we'll do wine storage for people, or I don't know. Self-storage, we'll have Hollow Tree Self-Storage take it over. They are the official partner of the Corbin District. But, you know, I think there are so many ways we could get caught up in trying to engineer this for forever, and I think we've got a really good plan. I mean, when it comes to the other things we'll talk about, like EV charging, I think we've got some very good forward-looking ideas in here now. But, you know, this is based upon our leasing, where we are now, we think 75% leased on the office or retail by summer, and 50% on the office. Like, we feel very good about, you know, where we're headed with leasing.
So can you just switch back?
And it's definitely a lot of retail. It's a lot of retail, you know, not just restaurants, a lot of, you know, retail, 3 or 4 fitness uses, and the thing we'll talk about, the dermatology, but.
Can you just flip back to page 5, which is the first red one?
This one?
One more back. That one. So
Yep.
see the white spot that's between D and E?
Yeah, that's that additional wing of precast garage.
That's the new parking
That's
space?
additional structured parking. And you won't see it from the post road.
But it's just the first level?
No, straight up,
Oh, really?
yeah. And to be candid, it's cheaper to build that. It's a lot cheaper. That's a $20,000 roughly, $20,000 per space, and underground parking space
Oh,
is
yeah, no, I get that.
50,000 or more per space.
So
So,
what's out of curiosity, what's the square foot of that box?
I don't know. Kate, do you know?
Is
The
it
square
like,
footage of the
20 by
way?
30 times 3 stories or something like that? How tall is a garage?
4 stories? The structured floor?
It's technically 5,
Yeah.
but the floor-to-floors are lower than a residential floor-to-floor, so you don't see it above.
Oh, wait,
So
you
it's-
have to
But
come
it's-
up and say your
You
name.
gotta,
don't wanna get in
introduce
trouble.
yourself, sorry.
See, I'm learning.
Hello, I'm Kate Perez with Baywater. So there's 5 stories technically of parking, but because the floor-to-floor is lower, it's hidden behind the 3 residential and retail
Well,
levels.
Can we call it 5 levels of parking instead of 5 stories of
Yeah.
parking?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a 5-story.
It's compressed.
It's not a 5-story building.
No.
right,
Yeah,
and one
so
of
it's
them
not-
is half subterranean, and so that kind
Okay.
of makes the
And
difference,
these,
yeah.
do these changes change any of the facade?
No, the
No.
facade remains
Yeah.
the same, yeah.
So that actually have some images too we can share.
This is what people call the Texas wrap, where you're wrapping
Yeah.
the building.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody does it now. You wrap the building around the parking garage. Okay, everyone understand that? Can we move to the next item?
Okay.
Okay, number 2,
Um,
thanks, Kate.
This is really probably, I think, one of the more interesting aspects that we'd like to ask you to consider. And again, we can come back on this. We have more time to talk about it, but we're happy
It's the
to.
ableist thing.
This is ableist. So,
We've been
as-
talking about this for 3 years.
yes, but some commissioner members weren't
No, I
here,
understand.
right? So we had to build under the project. At the time, the requirement was 12% of our units had to be affordable. We proposed to do some off-site units, and we proposed a concept whereby we would build 12 units on East Lane as affordable rentals, but further deed restricted to say that they had to be rented to people with intellectual or developmental disabilities. That's where we landed after the to and fro with the conversation. We're really happy to say that the project leased up within weeks. Amy Montemuro of Ableist is here, so she can answer any specific questions you may have about that outcome. But there are 11 residents living there happily. They've transitioned from home. There's a staff member living there as well who's amazing. We had a block party with the neighbors. One of the neighbors' bands played. We had the pizza truck from Parlor come. It was a pretty awesome event. Travis Wright's band played. It was very, very cool. And people have transitioned, and they're doing really well. And Ableist, I mean, as we always say, like, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. Ableist was asked to go do the same project in Westport. And so there's a developer in Westport, Sam Gall, and Coastal Development, who are doing a project with Ableist in Westport, literally copying the same program. And Amy can tell you she's gotten calls from all around the country from people that want to know how she did this and how they could do it. I'm getting the same kinds of calls.
Well, Kate built the building, so don't lose Kate.
Kate built the building and
I
she
know
rocked
that.
it, yes, true. So our original proposal to you was that we would build the 12 units for ableist, deed restricted in that way on East Lane, and we would do 2 units for just typical affordable units. But to be candid with you, one of the neighbors' criticism of us, in the original zoning application was that we were putting, the disabled people or people with different abilities in the corner, and we weren't putting the units downtown. And that's been gnawing at me for a very long time. And I've been talking to Amy about it, and we've gotten to know Amy better. We've gotten to know the ableist team better. From everything we see, East Lane is a huge success. We've actually gotten to know the residents. My mom brings her dog there on Mondays and volunteers with them, and they do like pet therapy or something, I guess you'd call it. We came up with the idea of presenting to you the possibility of further deed restricting our 2 units downtown for adults with developmental or intellectual disabilities managed by ableists in the same way. So that, and there are already 2 or 3 people in East Lane who ableist believes can graduate to a more independent way of living, which we think would be really cool. We're also helping them. Ableist has landed in Darien, has taken over the cafe of the Darien Library. They've taken over the cafe at the Darien YMCA. They're talking to a number of our tenants about creating jobs for people in their programs. We're actually talking about hiring people from ableist to help manage the Corbin district. One of them is about to start with us in 2 weeks. And there's just been a lot of really good things that have come of the relationship. And so we'd like to do this. I think it's probably, Jeremy, we didn't really talk about this much, but you probably agree, we probably need to draft specifics around it, but I just wanted to float the trial balloon with you to see if you were all receptive to the idea. But we think it addresses the neighbor concern. There was a neighbor concern who said, you're really isolating people. Our point then was not everybody is capable of living downtown that independently. I met a lot of parents who wouldn't feel comfortable, but I think that now we have this transitional housing situation where ableists and the parents and the residents can decide. They can do whatever they want. It's a lease. No one's forcing them to live there. Do they want to take a chance and try living downtown? And we're game to do that with ableists because of the relationship we've developed. So that's my...
Would the 2 apartments be near each other, next to each other?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think we could talk about that. But I think, the idea is you don't want to segregate. You want everybody to be kind of distributed throughout the place. It's more efficient. That was always our point. It's more efficient. But these are for folks who are able to live a little more independently. And ableist has many other examples in other communities. In Greenwich, for example, I have a friend who lived for many years, Amy, in an apartment in downtown, not this Amy, lived in an apartment in downtown Greenwich, relatively independently with ableists checking in on her and making sure she got to her job occasionally or checking on her financial affairs and so on.
In a one-off apartment?
One-off apartment.
Yeah.
In one of those buildings near the town hall.
Yep.
So, again, I probably have to come back to you for this, but I want to plant the seed. We think it's a really good idea, and we think it addresses a neighbor concern in a really constructive way. So we'd like to do it. If there are other reasons for which you don't think it's a good idea, or you think another approach to housing is important, then we're open to that too. But we love.
Let me ask Kevin a quick question. And I know we haven't really done it yet, but it's got nothing to do. We're not chasing points, but relative to moratorium points or HUE points, did we get any extra bonus for the?
You wouldn't necessarily get a bonus. Certainly, the way the point structure is you get, in fact, dock points for senior housing. Senior housing, because it's
Was that only a half?
You get less points. We have not asked the Department of Housing to weigh in on those
So we don't
points
know.
yet, the East Lane points, whether we get full credit, partial credit, extra credit. We haven't reached out to them yet, but
Because we're not even close, so there's no reason to.
there's no reason to at this time. However, probably later this year or next year, basically what they're going to say is hand over the deeds that are filed in land records, all the restrictions and limits. They'll review them and make a determination based on that.
You get 1.2 points.
If for a senior affordable housing unit at like 77 Leroy, we got a half a point for each of those. There's 5 in
units.
there. So you get 2.5 points. If it wasn't senior affordable, it's just affordable, you technically
Get a
get
full
1
point.
point.
You should get a full.
We're not chasing points,
Right.
it's a really.
But it's nice to know what the facts are. And, I would say we're not proposing to do this as for seniors with disabilities, just people with disabilities. And I would say, anecdotally, the people that have been kind of identified as probably likely to graduate to this
That
housing.
live in East
are
Lane
young.
can move over here.
They're
'cause you already
younger.
know 'em.
Yeah, and they're already walking around downtown all the time, and they're pretty awesome people, so.
Cool, okay.
All right.
Any questions relative to that? Next, number 2. Number 3.
Why is that not? Oh, there we go. Oh, that's just a picture of East Lane, for those of you who haven't seen it. That's one of the buildings at East Lane,
You mean the building that Kate built?
the building that Kate built.
Okay, just making sure we got it right.
Third point was something we raised last year, but we didn't really get closure on it, was we'd like permission to close Market Street. Market Street is this interior street. Oh God, my cursor is so small. I'm gonna do this with my fingers. This is Penny Lane. This is the road we propose to call Penny Lane. This is Market Street. This is a one-way street. Penny Lane is a one-way street into the garage or onto the surface lot. This is a one-way street with parking on both sides. That's basically the width of Day Street. So it's designed in what we call like traffic calming way. So it's a little bit narrower, slows you down so you're not flying down the road. So it'll be fine most of the time. But the idea that we proposed last year, some of you may remember, was to close this in the summer months, in the warm months, so that we could have, a pedestrian area going way back to the 2017 original text amendment. Was that even in 17? I don't even. Was 17 the text amendment or the site plan? God, I don't even know.
They were close together.
The original site plan, some of you may recall, was done by a different architect with us. It had a municipal-looking building at the end of a big town green. We concluded that that building made no sense because it was like municipal-looking, then we were gonna monkey with it to make it work as a retail building. It seemed like crazy, like instead of just building buildings that would work but be reflective of town architecture, and the Architectural Review Board agreed with us. But there was that big town green. People, in truth, people really like that idea of the town green. I mean, we got a lot of positive feedback on that. Penny Glassmeyer, my partner at the time, was worried that for a lot of months of the year, when the weather's not so great and no one's really on it, it would look really empty and kind of depressing. So we between wanting to change up the buildings, getting rid of the residential building that would have been on 95 or face 95, if you recall, those of you who were there, like where building F is, that was originally proposed to be a residential building. We changed that to an office building to basically block 95, because we know most residents are not going to want to live facing 95. We did that, and we got rid of it, and we kind of came up with this idea of the 3 pedestrian zones. In between these buildings, across here and here, some of which has outdoor dining. There's a splash zone we've incorporated into this in front of the toy store for the kids to play in the water. Kate designed that. Shout out to Kate. But we were inspired by Greenwich Avenue in the first pandemic year, where they closed the bottom third to traffic completely and allowed the restaurants to be on the street. And it was just this really vibrant, pleasant place. We think that there's only 28 parking spaces in this strip anyway. 28 parking spaces in the scheme of everything we'll have created is immaterial. I mean, and we've also now, as you know, added parking spaces versus the original plan and reduced our retail square footage. So we'd like to have the ability to close that in the season, seasonally, like, Memorial Day to October 1 or something, and just have this be a pedestrian-only area and see what happens. If it's a disaster, we can revisit it. I don't think it's going to be, but with all of these outdoor restaurants and the activity that will be here, I think it could create a really interesting dynamic in a nice setting, and so we wanted to represent that properly.
We did that same exact thing for Palmerston, which is now called Darien
Crossing?
Heights Crossing.
Heights
Yeah.
Crossing.
Wait, we get back.
Okay.
Question, so when you go off the post road, down Penny Lane, into the garage, right? And that, you said that's one way, so now when I come out of the garage in the morning, I'm going out via G?
You're going out via G, yeah, to Corbin Drive, which actually is deliberate, because what it does is it then uses their light at Corbin and the post road to moderate the traffic.
Okay. So
It actually might work better than having people exiting on Market Street.
on Market and then making the left or making the right, we approved it, so it may be a hard left, but
Yeah.
maybe not a hard left, a difficult left
Yeah.
hand turn. But the entrance in and out of the garage is obviously two-way, right?
Correct. There's two entrances at E, and then see that L? To the left of L, there's another entrance to the underground parking there. Right here.
Right, yeah, but the stacked section that's
Here's-
in
Right
that,
here
yeah,
and right here.
but the E stack section, that's where you go up to the upper level, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, we talked about this a while ago, they have it all over Europe, they close streets, we did it on Palmer's, it's the same thing. Any questions on this one?
There's nothing, if I remember from last year, the only concern was the stuff on the street won't be permanent in case the fire trucks like do need to go down it. You're not gonna put
Right,
like
right.
planters blocking the
No,
roads
no,
at the
we'll make
ends
sure,
of it,
we'll work with the
right?
fire department to make sure that that's safe.
Yeah,
And there'd be like, I don't even know, we talked about like planter boxes that block it, but they'd be movable. easily
yeah, not
movable.
permanent, yeah.
At the high school going into the courtyard in the middle, there's the
Oh, yeah.
bollard there that's in the sink, and
Yeah.
that's,
You can pull them.
you pull it up and down.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they may do something like that, the bollards will go up and down.
No, it's a great idea.
This is a vision of like what it looks like with the street, with a car on the street, but that's kind of a view from the office building looking toward the post road, toward Millie's Restaurant in Hinoki.
You want it earlier than Memorial Day? Gets warm these days.
We would love that, but if we could say, where were we this year? May 1 to like October 1 or something?
It was always May 15th,
I mean-
October 15th.
Yeah.
Those were
That'd be
the
great.
dates.
We'd love it. I mean, I think we could give, you let us have a bigger period and then we'll adjust it if it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you'd be able to really super specify it, but
David, on this one page, it says, taking into account the outdoor dining areas, this plan still exceeds the plaza area requirement.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure what that meant, because that kind of indicates that you were taking area away from the plaza area requirement, and you're still okay. The way it was worded, I didn't
Sure,
understand.
sure. This was just taken from the presentation last year. So what we were pointing out, last year we came back, we'd always talked about outdoor dining. So the conversation started last year. This isn't a change in my pattern of behavior, as a result of Grove Street Plaza. I'm not like taking back public plaza every which way. We talked about outdoor dining as part of the plan last year, or
And
in the original application.
your plaza requirement's like 13% or something.
I
It's some
think it's 5% of the total lot area, so it works out, we need to provide 16,000 feet. We provide 17,062 feet.
And the derivation
With
of that, we were dedicating certain plaza spaces to individual tenants because they
Correct.
want their own specific.
Yeah, so the
space.
green areas on this drawing, those are the spaces that are kind of theoretically marked out.
Okay.
Full disclosure,
Yeah.
we don't put this on the internet, but will start to now. This here is Hinoki Restaurant from Greenwich, sushi restaurant. This is Millie's, that's a signed lease, this is their proposed outdoor seating. This is a restaurant TBD, we had a restaurant where we were working with, they just flaked out on us. This is Chopped, that's a signed lease. And we're working with the microbrewery for like a brew pub kind of a thing, like a co-working brew pub idea that we think would be kind of fun for this spot. And then a restaurant with some like farm-to-table chefs for this spot. And that's a patio, not a plaza.
So you're gonna have a bar, you're gonna have a brewery in the bottom of an office building.
Yeah.
What's the one in Stamford?
If you went by the half-full third place.
Yeah, that's the one.
You'd get a feeling for what we're talking about.
Yeah,
That's, it's not an office building though.
No, but
that's what I assume that's where they have like the phone booths inside that where you can
Correct.
take
Yeah.
meetings and
Yeah.
everybody's
It's
in there
pretty
working on
cool.
laptops. Yeah,
coffee in the morning, beer in the afternoon.
Yeah. It is exactly what it is.
I work there once a week.
And by the way, I went on Sunday, not because I'm doing due diligence or anything, but the amount of babies in there on
Oh, it's crazy.
on a Saturday or Sunday, it's crazy.
Their only downside is they don't have a kitchen.
Right. They sell pizza now, though.
Yeah.
I had some appetizers there, they were terrible.
Yeah, I don't think you go for the food.
Nah.
Do you have any other questions on that?
Yeah, how about deliveries? Where are those trucks gonna go? and-
So, the delivery situation is gonna be from the back. That area, for the restaurants, they're basically gonna have to park in that,
G, right?
Yeah, here, this is like gonna be reserved for like drop-off, short-term parking and deliveries, and the idea is they'll just drop off and then roll it around. We're not gonna have people park on the post road. We're not gonna do, you see that every once in a while, these guys can't do that. Their deliveries are too big. And we're having, this is gonna be a little different too, I mean, just keep in mind, this is gonna be a little bit different in that this isn't like a one-off building with like no on-site management, like there's real engineers on-site helping make sure things are kind of tight and clean. It's gonna be a little, I don't want to use the term in a bad way, but like a little Disney-esque, right? We want to make sure it's clean, it's neat all the time. It's not going to be, it's going to be managed a little differently than a one-off building.
But the delivery pattern's not changing.
No, it's the same as it was.
It was always like that.
I mean, the thing is, if we want, in the morning, we can actually, our engineers can open up that roadway to take deliveries. If we're wrong when we close the street and it's too much of a pain and they're all complaining, we can schedule food deliveries for the morning and say, you got to schedule your delivery for 6 a.m. and one of our guys just sits there at the entrance to sits at the entrance here and opens it and lets them in and lets them out. I mean, that may happen. I don't think so, but it's possible. It's possible.
There's a guy dropping off the bread and stuff like that.
Yeah. It'll be more like the box truck will be more the issue than.
Is there any plan to clean it?
Oh yeah.
Like imagine August rolls around, that street's gonna be pretty full of food and spilled sodas and beer.
It's the same as Grove Street Plaza.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Or the back of 1020 Post. And
Right.
it's going to be active. It's going to be very active. We're not going to use that same porous brick, though, that we used at 1020. That brick is not a great brick for outdoor use. It looks great. It's an old Virginia hand-stripped brick, but it's very porous.
Yeah.
It's not great.
What are you asking for in terms of time frame? I mean, we would be amending the special permit, so this is forever?
To add, I would like that, or maybe for a 5-year period to see how it goes. I mean, the challenge for us, just thinking out loud, is we are working with tenants saying, you can do this seasonally, you'll have the ability to do it. We're about to sign a lease with this restaurant right here, who would have a little bit of space. This is going to be a restaurant by the Barcelona Restaurant Group people for a new concept that they've never opened anywhere in the country. It's imagine Barcelona like with Mediterranean small plates. I would like to see it run with the approval if we could, but we can talk about that. I just don't want to have to come back every year and
check to see what we did on Palmer's.
Okay.
Because they have the same thing. I don't know if there's a seasonal, but I think we designed it so they could close whatever they wanted to.
I think the difference between like the typical situation and this situation is, or Palmer's or Federal, is like, if we create a mess, we own the whole mess. So like we have to fix it. So, I mean, I think you can rest assured that like we're going to make sure this works, and if it doesn't, we're going to adjust it with the tenants. We have to.
Yeah, I just have concern about the intensity of this whole area, and even ordinary traffic is untested at this point. We don't really know how that's going to look, and now if we're constraining traffic a little bit more, that worries me a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
No, I
we
understand.
need some flexibility.
Yep. I guess I would reiterate, of the 844 parking spaces that we're creating, you're only really getting rid of, I think it's 28. Is it 28 spaces on Market Street? I think it was 28 across the whole. So it's a relatively slight number of parking relative to the whole.
Yeah, no, you said that.
Yeah.
And I think there is a chance it actually works better because it pushes the traffic further down Corbin Drive.
It's mostly gonna be used at night too, when retail's not gonna be open.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not lunchtime?
Well, lunchtime, you'll have people out there.
Some at lunch, but.
All right.
Any questions on this? Mike, Adam, Aim? Good? Okay, next.
EV charging. Darien so we're doing a lot of EV charging in the project. We wired every apartment in the first building, the Tibbetts building at 35 Corbin. We wired every apartment with an EV charger, so 4 for 4, they have their own charger. In the building at 15 Corbin, the longer building on Corbin, and then the Bank of America building, we have wired for approximately 30% of the apartments, but we have the ability to go to 100%.
You put the wiring, but you didn't put it
We put it in for roughly 30% of the units, for the residential units, but we can go to 100.
Did you do it all for Tibbetts?
100% for Tibbetts.
Okay.
And we're going to do the same thing for the office and apartment tenants in phase 2, but we thought that, if you drive around Darien, there really isn't a lot of EV charging. We've got one kind of rickety charging station at Goodwives Shopping Center. There's a couple at Whole Foods. I think that's it. I don't know if anyone's aware of any other ones, but I'm not. So we've been approached. Which one?
Goodwives near
That's-
People's Bank.
Yeah,
That's
that's
Oh,
the
I'm
rick-
sorry.
that's the
yeah.
rickety one.
Okay.
But I don't think Federal put public EV charging in the parking lot.
There was
did it.
EV charging at the old Stop and Shop, and when they demoed the Stop and
They
Shop,
got
they
rid of
went
it?
away.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
we
Federal
approved that.
provided it, I think, just for residents, and they only put in 6 for like 120 units, which we think is kind of light. We wanted to provide for our residents, but we also thought that it was important, in the spirit of like trying to do the right thing, to add charging stations for the public. So we've been talking to a number of our operators for the level 3 charging. So what we're putting in the residential units or for the office is a level 2 charger where you plug it in at night, you wake up in the morning and your battery's full. These are the level 3 chargers that are a lot more expensive. There's a lot more power supplied to them. It's a rapid charge. Supercharged. So it could charge your car in 30 minutes. So we'd like to take 6 of them in. They won't be blocked off for EV charging only. One of our fears, to be candid with you, was, we're close to the highway. If we did this with Tesla and they put it on the supercharger map, suddenly people are jumping off the highway. I mean, that's not a bad thing, because if they're getting a charge, they might go to the restaurant and do something, go shopping for a bit and discover Darien. But, these are not blocked off. So somebody could park here and take up the space and not use it for charging. If you plug in and you leave your car for too long, they'll penalize you. So they will make you go unplug. But we'd like to do this. We think it's the right thing to do. The state of Connecticut's encouraging everyone to do it. The federal government's encouraging everyone to do it. Eversource is providing incentives to do it. So they're giving out grants to help defray the significant cost of this. And we just think it's the right thing to do. So we set up for 6. We designed it already, so we're sure we can do it with the transformers required with our engineers. But it wasn't on the original plan, and so we wanted to come back and ask you before we kick off if this is something you guys were amenable to.
Erstad Bell is putting in superchargers at all the shopping centers. And it's always about 6. It's always on the outside of the thing. For the most part, I think at Erstad Bell, they are Tesla chargers.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't matter. I mean, there was a thing that came out last week, Ford's making their cars adapt to Tesla.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem with it. Any questions on this one?
If you wanted to expand the number in the future, is it feasible, or would it require a significant amount of
The base-
conversion from the engineering standpoint of the added electricity and transformers?
Sure, good, that's a good question. So with the same approach we took to the Bank of America building in that first middle building, 15 Corbin, we only installed 30%, but we can go to 100%. Is that right, 30%, Kate? Of the apartments, 30 or 40%?
I'm Kate with Baywater. Yeah, we have 34 units sharing that garage, and we are wired for 10, but we bought sub-panels that support 34. So basically, like, we can buy additional chargers and everything's connected, we have the load to do
The
that.
transformer powers
Right.
there.
For
Powers.
this phase. And then
Yeah.
the Tibbetts building's a little bit separate, those ones are tied to their apartment panels, so that one's easy, but it's, it's all set up for all 6 of those or whatever.
So I guess
Right.
what he's
And then,
asking
and then
for
on the
is what-
6 chargers,
Could you
the
expand?
transformer set up to take 6 more.
6 more.
That's
So
the-
that's
yeah.
why, if we open this up and we find incredible demand,
Yep.
then you could you come back to us in a year, or 2
Correct.
years, and put in another
Correct.
6.
Correct.
Okay.
So that was the plan. We're trying to be forward-looking wherever we can be. So that was that. The
Any
last,
questions?
the last one, if you look at this plan, this is 15 Corbin. Shoes and More, Green and Tonic, Everything is Rosy, Toy Box, Ellen Ainson, Compass.
I thought Toy
Actually,
Box
this
was
is
in the
Toy
other.
Box.
I
That's
thought Toy Box was in the other
right?
building.
Yeah, Toy Box, excuse me. Toy Box is going here. He's
Temporary
moving
or
here, and then
permanent?
he's relocating
Yeah,
to phase 1.
okay.
When he relocates, we have that space to release. We've been approached by a lot of med spas. The med spa thing, Botox is really big in Darien, in case you haven't noticed. And, there's a lot of med spas. So Of Me opened up in Nerode Heights in the Darien Commons. They did a medical thing, One Medical also, which I think you guys discussed. Studio MD is a med spa that opened behind this, by the sport shop and the store that used to be, or is opening up, in the store that used to be Wishlist. So it was typical retail. They converted it to an infrared sauna thing, and now Studio MD. So we've been talking to med spas. We have Williams and Company as a tenant. Williams and Company is a day spa. They do have a doctor that goes in and does Botox, I think like once a week or once every other week. We've been trying to be delicate with Williams and Company because they're an existing customer of ours, and we always try to be supportive of who's there and be additive, not to cannibalize people's business. The typical med spa is like a little bit too close to Williams and Company, but this doctor approached us. She's one of the premier dermatologists in Fairfield County, and in Greenwich, probably the top dermatologist in Greenwich. It's the first time I actually had a patient of hers, of a doctor, call me to say, I heard you're going to zoning tonight. I'd like to come to speak on behalf of my doctor. That's how strongly she feels about this doctor. Kitty Wynn, in case you know her, you can ask her. She'll tell you.
I don't know.
Really nice woman. But Sarah Dulder approached us to lease space at 36 Old Kings Highway. She really doesn't like the look of the typical medical building. It's just not her vibe. She has a space right now, which is on the first floor and the second floor of a building on Lewis Street in Greenwich, off of Greenwich Avenue, right off Greenwich Avenue, across from La Penguin. And it's like a very modern, cool-looking office. She does a lot of the aesthetic stuff, and she does typical dermatology. But she didn't like 36 Old Kings Highway. She said it just looks like a boring medical building, and that's not her presentation, so she wants to rent this space from us. So interestingly, there's no other dermatological practice in Darien that we're aware of. We had a dermatologist at 17 Old Kings Highway who stopped a while ago. There are cosmetic surgeons, but no dermatologists. She would have she said really 8 to 10, but she said 8 employees on site. Normal hours would be Monday through Thursday, 8 to 6, and Friday from 8 to 5. She wouldn't be open Saturday and Sunday. We looked at it. We think it's fine. We think it works. We're comfortable with the use and really excited about the possibility of bringing someone of this quality to Darien. So that's our last request.
Now, David, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You and I discussed that informally, and I know we went through the regs and we talked about, do you remember, I can't remember where we left it in terms of figuring out how to get, whether that's a use as of right, whether it required a special permit. I can't remember.
I think it honestly requires a special permit. So if you want us to come back with more detail, we can do that. Dr. Sarah Dolder would have been here tonight, but her father-in-law passed away yesterday, so she couldn't make it. But I think it's sort of a blend. What's really happening in this space is probably 60% personal service and 40% medical. So I think, Jeremy, that's kind of where we shook out on it. Because a lot of what she does is already happening in Williams and Company and Studio MD and these kinds of places.
But I think that's how we left it. It's personal service use requiring a special permit in this Corbin sub-district, section 733F. I think that's, because, when you talk about what Fred and I do during the day is people come to us with uses, we're like, it's not as simple, I sell toys, or I'm a doctor. Sometimes you're like, it's not retail, it's not a personal service.
This is a blend. It's truly a blend.
I think we talked about it as a personal service because of the nature of what she specifically does. And when Fred and I talked about, what was it, One Medical, or the one that's where the cryotherapy was, that it might be called One Medical, but when you looked at what they did, we're like, no, it's a personal service use. They're not really a medical use. So the name of the business can be deceiving, but when we look at it from a zoning standpoint.
So we're gonna look at the floor plan, it's gonna count the number of treatment rooms, the number of employees, and go through all the.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, it's no different than if I came to you with, a med spa.
Right, that's the same.
It would really be the same, and you've approved med spas in the district or in this zone, in the CBD zone. But Sarah's really excited. She wants to commit to us. We'd like to commit to her. But before we go too far down the road, I just wanted to kind of lay it out and say this is a little bit of an apple and an orange. And how do you want to look at it?
What do we, the one that's at Federal, which is OEM or whatever?
Of me.
Of me. That's med spa.
That's
that's different or it's the same? Did we-
It's kind of the same. I mean, that's
We
probably
didn't give
60.
them any special permits, right? They haven't asked for any?
Right, that would, we considered that, I think, a personal service use or commercial service, I don't remember.
It's a different
Yeah,
zone.
off the top of my head, I don't recall either.
But they have, you know, cancer,
She does both.
she does, I mean, she's a real doctor.
She does both. I mean, she has
Justice
people who
service.
work for her
Yeah.
who aren't doing the,
Yeah,
inspections, like the
yeah,
skin.
yeah, yeah.
Do you know of the practice?
I do.
Yeah.
I do know the practice.
So, it's elevated. It's kind of different,
Yeah.
right? You walk in and
Yeah.
you
There's
feel like,
certainly an aesthetic part, and then there's actual, you know, she's, you know, cancer treatments and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
Just-
she's
just
a
skin
blend,
cancer?
for sure.
yeah, I agree. We agree.
So,
Go ahead.
quickly, I may have missed this, but are we talking building H, first floor, or where are we talking?
Yes, building H, first floor.
First one.
It'll look no different from the outside than any of these med spas, but on the inside, it's a blend. But it's like, I'd say it's 60/40. That's what Dr. Dolder reported to me.
So that's the frontage is not overwhelming, the frontage is more narrow and it's more depth.
And there's skincare products on offer, so it's got a retail component like a lot of these places.
Right, you get Compass on the corner. Who's to the left and the right, I'm sorry?
Green and Tonic to the left, and then we have to figure out who will be to the right. And there's another tenant we're talking to for the right, which I can't say just yet, but typical retail use.
Who's the guy in the corner across the street from? They got two to, who's left of Green and Tonic?
Shoes and More.
Okay. Okay, any
All
questions on this one? Take it to the next step, you can take it to the next step?
Mhm.
You good?
That's really it for me,
Fantastic.
all right?
So this is a general meeting, we're not voting on anything, right? Are you gonna draft up some letter and say yes, no, maybe so?
Yeah, I guess, changes to the parking garage, the seasonal closure of Market Street, which David needs, and the EV charging, I guess for leasing purposes, helpful to have decisions on those up front.
Yes.
Whereas the affordable housing can come later on. Med spa, I think the consensus of the commission seems to be needs a special permit. But the other three items, the change to the garage, the seasonal closure of Market Street, and the 6 EV charging stations. I guess you guys can vote on those tonight if you wish.
Yeah, all right, so let's do that. We'll do them one at a time, just like we did the woman at the library. So can I get a motion to approve the item 1, which is changes to the garage and building adjustments in building D? Adam makes a motion, Amy makes a second. Questions, everyone in favor? Okay, you got your parked garage and your thing. The next item is seasonal closure of Market Street. You want to say May 15th to October 15th to give it dates?
May 1, October 15th?
Yeah, May 1, that's fine by me. I'm not sitting outside May 1.
Make
But you
it May
can.
1.
When's Easter and Mother's Day? Mother's Day's in, I always think of Mother's Day.
Second Sunday.
Mother's Day changes.
Second Sunday in May.
No, it doesn't, he knows. See?
Well,
All
yeah.
right, May 1st, that's fine.
May 1st.
May 1st to Halloween, how about that?
There we go.
May 1st to Halloween, okay? Looking for a motion to approve that. Amy makes a motion, Adam makes a second, all those in favor? Okay, you got May 1st to Halloween for your closing of Market Street, and then the last one is
But
the.
we didn't put a term on that.
Yeah, George's question earlier was if you want to do it for,
Can we do it for 5 years? You live in 5 years?
How about 3?
3 years? Live with 3 years?
We already voted on
What's that?
it. Didn't we already vote on it?
You care?
I think the operator will make changes if necessary and pivot.
It's gonna self-regulate.
Yeah, I think it's operator.
It's gonna take a year to build anyway, so if it's 3, that's really effectively 2, so we might as well make it 5, and it's 4. If we're gonna put a limit on it, I don't want a limit, I think it's
But
fine all the
George
time.
is,
Interesting logic.
George is making an amendment to the motion that was on the table, which is
So
fine.
you don't want
Yeah.
a limit, I don't want a limit. Steve, where are you?
I don't want to live it.
So, no limit.
Okay, I voted in favor of a limit. Just make a note.
Okay, so the amendment
Okay.
didn't pass, and so it's still May 1st to Halloween
max,
max.
and then leave it up to the applicant.
Okay, all in favor on that one, just to recount?
On which one? No?
The close of Market Street from May 1st to Halloween,
Oh.
in perpetuity for life.
You had to add the salt to the wound, did you? All right.
All in
right,
favor?
right, right.
All right.
5-9, okay. Did we do, EV chargers?
Yeah.
6 EV chargers on the back spot where no one can see them, and hopefully people come off the highway and know about it, and then go buy lunch at the sushi place. We'll make a motion that we're gonna allow EV chargers. Amy makes a motion. George makes.
Sure.
George makes a second. He's on the card.
Come on.
All in favor? 5-0. Now, you asked for 5 things, you got 3. You're gonna come back to us with regards to the dermatology, that's a special permit use. And then you're gonna come back to us at some point in time with Eva's going to the affordable on-site parking.
Yeah.
Okay, you good, Kate?
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. All right. I think we're done with that item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is amendment of Land Filling Regrading Application number 498, Donato and Christina Pacione. I apologize, people, I can't say your name. 40 Morley Lane, request to relocate and reconfigure a previously approved swimming pool on the property and to perform related site development activities. Fred and I spoke about this. I think the concept is we have an architect engineer here. They want to, and we got a letter from Accord Engineering. They want to move the pool closer to the house. Right?
Pretty much.
Fantastic. Why don't you state your name for the record, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Tom Nelson, professional engineer with McCord Engineering. You want me to give a quick overall of this?
Not really,
Okay.
just real quick. It's quick, it's 9:15.
Yeah, effectively, original design was to have the pool sort of hanging out a little farther from the house, a separate patio area near the pool, a separate patio area near the house. The new proposal is to kind of consolidate those patios closer to the house, pull that pool sort of in parallel with the house, wrap a little bit of patio around the pool. The net was like a 50 square foot increase in impervious. The stormwater management system got adjusted to fit the pool, but effectively is the same. The amount of earthwork is reduced because we lowered the pool coping elevation by 1.5 feet. Net overall disturbance, we didn't push the limits at all. The distance from the property line is the same. Screening is the same. So it's really just a matter of reorientation of the pool and the patio.
Are you saving a couple shekels by moving it closer to the house?
I believe that, yes.
Yeah, less wall to be built. The
Yeah.
pool had a big wall on the.
Yeah, the original pool design, the pool sort of overhung the edge of the slope and was partially exposed, so the pool sort of doubled as a retaining wall, and I think that's true. I think that cost was certainly going to be more than a traditional pool installation.
Okay, any questions?
You
George?
just a little quickly referred to an increase, I think, in impervious or impervious?
An increase, a 50 square foot increase in the impervious coverage.
Impervious.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so about 50 square feet more patio. We did update the stormwater management calculations. We still have no increase in the peak flows.
Good, okay.
And the lot coverage doesn't change at all, right?
No,
You're still way under 20% or whatever the number is.
yes.
Adam, Mike,
I'm good.
Amy? Okay, can I get a motion to approve this gentleman's request? Mike makes a motion, looking for a second. George makes a second. All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Good luck with your new pool location.
Appreciate it.
New pool. All right. Last item up for bid in here for this portion of the evening. Discussion of ARB recommendation regarding changes to sign regulations on blade signs, section 935. We talked about this a couple different times.
Yeah, I think it's been in your packets a few times. We've never spent sufficient time to kind of go through it. Very straightforward. In the current zoning regulations, the blade signs, when the sign regulations were updated a few years ago, there were various standards on blade signs, 7 square feet max, and you can stick out from the building this amount of distance. And the ARB's been working with those standards for a couple of years now and has realized, we're not really comfortable with some of the standards. So we recommend to P&Z, and that's what you can see with this Liz Geiger letter, is, you know what, we're recommending that if you could, Planning and Zoning Commission, make some minor tweaks to section 935 only on blade signs. The rest of the sign regs, they had no issues or concerns with, but they asked that you put forth a formal proposal to change it. And you can see that they've put together a memo outlining the minor changes. The biggest change to me is the max area of the sign is going from 7 square feet down to 5 square feet.
Yeah, that's the thing I was asking. We don't get, but I didn't.
The others are very minor. The 7 square feet, if you want to use it as reference, in the middle of downtown, Wim, which is right next door to Uncle's Deli, and Sipsters are in the same building. The Wim blade sign is 7 square feet. That was specifically approved to 7. It's a black rectangle. What the ARB has said, 7 seems a little much. So a lot of the Federal Realty tenants were coming in with 7, and the ARB is like, geez, we're not really comfortable with 7. So they said, you know what, let's just make the max size 5 from now on.
Okay. What have they been doing over at Corbin District?
Oh, I don't think they've gotten into any of the Corbin District signs yet, other than maybe a blade sign. Bank of America maybe has one. I don't know, Compass might have one. I think certainly that'll be Compass.
7 or 5?
I think it's 5.
Yeah, I think,
Should I make a comment?
It's a general meeting, which is out of order, but tree count, seriously. Because, I mean, I know at Corbin District, they were always showing that Morley sign, which Morley, I guess, is not gonna be there anymore. Yeah, here it is here. That Morley sign, that's in that one.
Yeah, that's probably 5 or 6 square feet. But I would just say, we just installed the Compass sign. I don't know off the top of my head the square footage of that sign. I think it's 5. I think we got cut back by ARB. I would ask you, before you vote on this, to just take a look at it. Over the next week or 2, we're gonna install all the blade signs that were approved. And my personal reaction to the Compass sign is it looks kind of small. And I think, I know what they're trying to do, but I think you can make sure that the signs are tastefully done, but if they look too small, then they actually cease to work. I mean, the point of a blade sign is that so when someone's coming down Corbin Drive, they can see the sign perpendicular to their path of travel, and they can read it and they know what's ahead. If it's so small, it really, it's not functional. So if you think about Newport, Rhode Island or Nantucket, you know, those are 2 places that probably many of you have visited. Like, they use blade signs a lot, and they're larger, and they're really artistic and cool and interesting. And, you know, there'll be a mortar and pestle for the pharmacy, or there'll be a flying fish for the fishmonger, or whatever. We haven't had the conversation with ARB yet, but I would be happy to weigh in on that once we see it all and we can kind of judge.
I guess that's the question for the commission. Do you want me to pull together a proposal for a hearing in what's likely to be July or September? Or hold off on a proposal, giving you more time to walk around town and see the signs that go up, et cetera?
Me personally, I have no concept of how big a 7 square foot sign is versus a 5. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, Wim does not offend me. I think it's a fine size,
I'm not saying anything jumped out to me that.
which is 7 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a little time.
So that's the sense I'm getting from the commission. Walk around town, now that you know what the question is.
Yeah.
Walk around Federal Realty, see David signs go up, look at some of the blade signs in town. Elsewhere, the ones in Grove Street Plaza are good examples. They're so neat.
Yeah, because how do we know, if we look at the neat signs, see that how do we know?
Ladder?
Can we get a survey of what?
What we'll do is get you a sense of what was approved by the ARB. So the reason I know Wim is because I specifically looked up and said, that one's 7.
Do we have any that are 5? Can we get just a couple examples
Yep.
of each so we can go by and say, this is the 7s and these are the 5s? Oh, the 5s are really small, or,
Right.
yeah, the 5s are fine, the 7s kind of look big sometimes, you know?
Apparently Compass is 5.
Yeah.
No, they were just-
Well, other than just the one.
And then neat is, neat's probably 4.
Yeah,
It's
neat's
like
is
2 by
pretty
2,
small.
isn't it?
Well,
I don't know.
we'll circle back on this in a few weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we're done with this?
Done.
Okay, next.
All right.
The next item on the agenda is, to be honest with you guys, I wasn't really ready for this because I had my notes, I left them at home, but I'll read it anyway. We're into discussion and deliberation only, proposed amendments of the zoning regulations, COZR number 1-2023, site plan application number 310A
special permit application number 324A, flood prevention application number 425A, 7 Sedgwick Avenue, LLC, 7 Sedgwick Avenue. Proposal to amend.
I suggest we dispense with the reading of the rest of it.
That's a good idea. Okay, that's
We
fine.
got it.
We got it. Obviously, this is the 7 Sedgwick building, which is gonna be a 3-story building, a 3-story building according to 3 other architects on the corner of Old Kings Highway. Is it south or north? It's north, right?
North.
Old Kings Highway North and Sedgwick. 22 units in a 3-story building, built basically lot line to lot line to lot line. The first item of this is that they're asking us to change 2 proposals to the zoning code to change the square footage of apartments, and then the second one was a clarification, which me personally, I didn't think needed clarifying, to that, and then do the other items with regards to it. It looks like that Fred drew up what we always like to call the blue sheets, or the cheat sheets to go over different items. I think this is one of the ones where we need to have debate on this a couple different nights, or discussion on this a couple different nights, or deliberations, whatever you want to call it. I know Jeff Ball had some thoughts and things that he wanted to introduce relative to the safety of the building, being in a flood zone that floods 4 feet. But we can start to go over this and have some talking points. Why don't we have Fred go through maybe the first page or half of the first page, if you want to. And we can listen to what you're thinking, since you put this nice memo together.
Yeah, Jeremy and I worked on putting this together. Starting off with the proposed amendments to the zoning regulations. Steve, as you noted, the first proposal is to amend section 726, item 13 of the regulations relative to the size of or maximum floor area of dwelling units in the central business district, modifying it from 1,000 square feet to 1,600 square feet. I don't know if the commission has any thoughts on that, or if you want to start off with
Why don't you do the
that
first?
discussion.
Why don't you do the first?
Steve, can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
If we don't approve the text amendments, this application doesn't conform to the zoning regs, is that correct?
That would be correct, because my recollection is the size of the units, and I'll have to double check by pulling the floor plans,
Yeah.
all exceed 1,000 square feet.
I think
Right.
Attorney Maslin said at one point, if we didn't do this, then they would come back with X number more units, and then I think Chairman said, well, then you gotta go back to the sewer commission to make sure that math now works, because you'll be adding so many more toilets and sinks.
You also have to go back to parking.
You'll have to go back to
Same thing,
parking.
parking, so the
Yep.
whole thing.
So it's certainly a prerequisite.
I mean, I think historically what we've done, Mike, is there's definitely some pieces that don't work. Like specifically, go to 7-Eleven for a minute. There was some changes they wanted in there. One of them had to do with ZBA approving something, but we did write up a full resolution answer to the thing. And in that instance, if they didn't get the ZBA approval, I think the whole deal was done anyway. You know, but we still went through the whole process. With regards to this one item, me personally, in the last couple of years, or 5 years, probably going back to 2017, we've approved all these big apartments. And a lot of them get big. The rents for the apartments they're pretty high.
Right.
They're 6,000, 8,000, you know, there's some $10,000 apartments. The smaller units, which are, there's some smaller ones over at Federal, there's some smaller ones at the 2 building that Vaccaro built, over the Vaccaro's buildings that are on where Pure Bar is and where Danny's Bicycle Shop is. Those are under 1,000 feet. Those are the less expensive ones in town. The other building it's definitely old in today's world is Garden Homes. I checked the rents on that the other day. You can get an apartment in there for like $1,200. In terms of diversifying housing, which is one of the things that we've been trying to do, I think, and also with, I keep calling it Palmer's, but you might call it Heights Crossing, we allowed them to increase up to 3 bedrooms. So that apartment's gonna be expensive. You know, if you use a round number of $4 a foot and it's 1,000 feet, that's $4,000 a month in rent. So as we creep up, we're not creating any less expensive apartments. So now we're gonna be all top end, you know, and the whole thing flips. I mean, I know that you can get an apartment inside Avalon, and some of those things are $5-6 grand a month for the bigger units. Relative to this, I don't think the attorney or the applicant put in anything that's out of the town plan or conservation and development that tells us that we're supposed to make apartments bigger. I mean, part of, too, the text change is gonna be in conformance with the town plan and conservation and development. And if we've changed everything and diversified stuff, now we're not helping the smaller side of the occasion. That's why when this was all done, way back when was this enacted, like 1980 or something like that, 1985, when they put in that 1,000 regulation?
Oh,
They
yeah,
made
that's
it
been
1,000.
around for a while, the CBD zone.
That's when they enacted it, and then, you know, it's there. So I didn't see any evidence that said we should have to raise the units in the CBD zone higher. Plus, we already did it in the sub-district, but the lower end of the market's not being served. Questions, Amy?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything you've said, yeah. I mean, I know we're only talking about the size of the apartments at this point, but,
Still goes to affordability
yeah,
and pricing.
yeah.
I mean, we're not making affordable housing, but what I'm trying to do is make, not affordable, trying to make it diversifying and make housing affordable, not affordable housing.
Yeah.
George, any
Smaller
comments on
units
this one?
rent for less.
I hear what you're saying, and it does make some sense, but we've got to look at the market that is here. I don't know, I'm betwixt and between. I was thinking that 1,600 square feet was not problematic for me as a maximum. You know, if they thought economically there was a good reason to keep them smaller, they could. But I'm unclear at the moment. I'm going to keep thinking.
Okay. Adam?
Well, I agree that it seems that we're building just bigger units everywhere, and the homes are getting bigger, and we are starting to creep on pricing people out of this town. So I also think that the increase is not necessarily something we want to do. And then I'm also concerned that we're constantly spot zoning different bits for different single one-off developments all over the place with no real uniformity across the entire town. And a future zoning board will look back and want to understand, why did they say, here you can do this, and then over here in this one little tiny subzone you could do it, and then over here you could do it, with no real rhyme or reason other than developers just want to put stuff there. So I'm concerned about just changing the regulations on the whole all over the place all of the time, instead of actually spending some time and thinking about, is there really a need to change the zone for, you know, to conform to some plan or some development inside of the town. So I think that this has been in place for obviously quite some time. It hasn't really been an issue. So I don't see that there's an urgent need to change it right now.
Agreed. I mean, I think the CBD zone's the biggest zone in town.
Yeah.
All of Grove Street Plaza, all those are under 1,000 square feet. Day Street's under 1,000 square feet. They're all successful.
Yep.
The 3 buildings I mentioned that Carl built, and that's the Norton Heights Business District. No, that's the Neighborhood Business District. Those are all small. You know, everything else has got bigger, and I think you're undiversifying housing, but just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think everyone mentioned it on that. We didn't hear from Jeff. The next one on here is proposal to amend section 726, note F, to clarify the parking requirements for one additional off-street per bedroom applies to mixed-use developments and allows dwelling units to be located on their floors as auxiliary uses under section 585. I don't know why personally why this is in here, because I didn't think there was a clarification needed. Maybe there was something. I don't know why they're doing it. And I don't know what it does for us or for the project,
I think he's trying to reduce the amount of required parking.
which is what we don't want to do. We already did that. We did that.
Correct.
We already changed the parking in town to make it less.
Yeah.
And we that was the study and a public hearing, and we went over and over that again. This is not a mixed-use project. In mixed-use projects like Federal and like Palmer and like Corbin, there's the mixed-use issue where the office space is empty at night, so you can use it for parking, and then, you know, the retail stores are closed and residents can live there. So that one doesn't make any sense to me either.
The way the note that is written now, 726F, if more than 2 dwelling units, then at least 30% of the total number of units shall be limited to 1 bedroom. Additional off-street parking space per bedroom shall be required.
But so why do we need to do this for this
He's-
application?
An additional off-street parking space per bedroom shall be required. So I think what he's suggesting here is that in addition to the parking regulation or number of parking spaces that are required by section 904 of the regulations, an additional off-street parking space per bedroom shall be required above and beyond what is required by section 904. So he's proposing, Attorney Maslin is proposing to change the language to read, if more than 2 dwelling units, then at least 30% of the total number of units shall be limited to 1 bedroom. In mixed commercial and residential developments, 1 additional off-street parking space per bedroom shall be required.
Okay, I still don't understand why we have to do this.
Because he wants to have 2 bedrooms, but not 2 parking spots.
Yeah, which we already changed.
But it's almost, to me, it's almost counterintuitive because we're requiring an extra one in a mixed-use building, which is the kind of usage where there's the, as you just said, the shared ability of a parking
Right.
spot.
Right.
And this is not shared, but less parking. So it's even, it's like, not only do I agree that I don't see why we need to clarify this perfectly clear rule, but it cuts against exactly what we're trying to do anyway. It
Agreed.
goes in the wrong direction. It's clarifying it and making it somehow less desirable from a zoning standpoint.
And I think, Steve, to your point before, on all of these, there was nothing presented of how they fit into the town plan of conservation development. I
There was no-
there was no, the ask was made, but there was no testimony as to how it fit in.
And why it would conform. You want to go next, George?
Well, I'm wondering is there an argument to be made that currently 1 additional off-street space per bedroom applies to mixed-use developments? He's suggesting that we got to clarify something. Is it already the case that this 1 additional off-street space applies only to mixed-use developments? Is that clarification or is that changing the current status?
I guess we need to take some additional time to evaluate the specifics of this language to really see
Any
what we're saying
suggestions?
here.
Yeah,
Jeremy,
I want to reread Bob's argument that he submitted as part of the application.
Did he provide any evidence in the town plan of conservation for
I
this?
thought he attached a few pages, but
I-
again, I want to read through that one more
I
time.
seem to
Let's
recall
listen.
that there was an element of this ask had to do with the fact that he's having a 3rd floor, and that the inclusionary zoning incentive was on a 3rd, he was providing them on a quote 3rd floor. And I don't see that in this language, but I have it in my notes that was part of the, so maybe. so
We'll come
maybe
back
we-
to that next time, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, but
Yes.
Good question.
There was a second part to
Okay.
726F that he proposed.
Yeah.
And that language reads that dwelling units located on the third floor of a building shall be deemed incentive units
Yep.
for purposes of section 585, provided that the use of second floor shall be limited to dwelling units.
The funny part about it is when this application started, Bob Madison called it a two-story building. It started out, that's his original argument, was a two-story building, that's why it doesn't need a plaza. And then we asked the architects and the engineers, everybody, how tall is it? And they all said it was 3 stories. And then all of a sudden it turned into a 3-story building. And the architect saying, well, the first floor has this, the first floor has that, the third floor's got that. And I said, okay, sounds like it's a 3-story building, not a 2-story building. And there's correspondence back and forth between Jeremy and Mr. Maslin, or Attorney Maslin, budget time, saying, you know, is it 2 or is it 3? And that, to me, is a little odd, but, so that, to change something that doesn't exist, doesn't matter anyway. Can we move on? You guys are gonna work on that way in?
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
keep looking at that question.
Proposal to raise the existing bank building on site, convert and redevelop the property to multifamily residence, and to perform related site development activities. So what are we asking
I
for
think the
here?
next thing is in the middle. We'll take the next section or two. What we put here under site plan, section 1023, refers to architecture review. I think you may recall it went to the architecture review board a number of times, and they issued negative reports, which were included in the record.
And are they ever going back to that?
They did go 3 times.
They started in 2019.
That's true.
They went in 2019, and we got the letters from ARB in 2019, change this, this, and this. Then they went again, and they got another letter that said change this, this, and to my knowledge, the only thing I ever saw, and I asked the architect that, was that they changed the roof to include the solar panels and the roof deck, and then it disappeared in the last application.
Right, the last iteration of the plans took out the, I'll call it the roof amenities, the pool, the dining areas. What was left on the roof were just essential equipment, generator. I don't even think it was a generator, I thought it was.
They changed the facade too on that
They
last
changed
bit.
the facade.
The only thing we usually see a
Yeah.
vanilla box, and we don't know if it's brick, or it's clapboard, or it's white, or it's pink, or it's purple. I mean, that's ARB's job.
The ARB negatives were almost identical in language across all 3 of those letters, indicating that they're just not changing much. You know, it's not like substantial improvements were changed and ARB still says no, but we're making progress. It seems like it was almost boilerplate, copy paste, denial from ARB.
Great.
Yep,
Eh?
that's my interpretation as well.
And
Yep.
just for the record, we have never, I've been on the commission for 10 years, I think. Maybe it's 11, I don't know if it really doesn't matter, but is there any evidence that we ever approved an application without ARB's approval?
I think the most recent one that got a negative report from ARB, I think might have even been referenced during the public hearing, might have been Commerce Bank,
But they never built it anyway.
one of the ones they didn't.
Commerce Bank was supposed to go where Texaco is, which is not even Texaco, now it's Shell
Shell.
Oil. That was supposed
North
to be a
Avenue.
Commerce Bank branch. That's why that guy ended up buying the other one, which is now
TD
Standard
Bank.
Oil. It's the same guy. And Commerce Bank went out of business, but they never built the building anyway, because they didn't like that blood logo thing.
My only concern about ARB not liking the building itself is that it strikes me as awfully similar to 800 Post Road, with the same number of square or cut off corners and whatnot. So if it was good enough for 800, I'm not sure why it's not good enough for.
800's got a whole lot of parking in the back.
Oh, parking is a different issue, absolutely, but
Yeah.
I don't look to ARB to tell us about parking. I look to
Agreed.
them to talk design.
I'm sorry, refresh my memory right now, not pulling.
800?
800,
Burger, shakes, and fries.
Yep,
Oh.
Janney Montgomery.
It's the others.
which is right there.
Yeah, the others at the end of Sedgwick at the post road. Anyway,
It goes 800 Post Road, then Houlihan Lawrence or Kelly, and then
that's
that
across the
building.
street. yeah.
Is 800 3 stories?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
On
And
Growley's
the plaza at the
back.
corner.
Got a plaza on the corner where they
Talk about a small plaza, it's a plaza.
It's a
Concrete.
plaza. They have Pilates out there.
They do?
The people
Oh, really?
do the exercise ladies that do. That's
On
not
the
pure
pavement.
bars. The bar method is in there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bar method. They both
But
are
stop me
outside.
if I'm wrong, a critical difference is, it's not a residential.
No, it's an office
No.
building.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about
Yeah,
the,
no, I know,
the view of it.
but I think there's an inherent in an expectation for an aesthetic to have, purpose and use and form and function. Like, does it look like an office building? Is it, operate, and you expect that versus a residential apartment
Mhm.
building, where you have different
Interesting.
expectations and different uses, and, I think that's might be a
Interesting.
difference,
Mhm,
at
okay.
least in my mind.
Yep.
The other difference is 800 doesn't cover the entire lot.
Correct. Doesn't it's got surface
That was
parking.
that was one of the ARB's concerns, is it's
Yeah.
property line to property line, and
I
no
don't,
part of it sits back from the road.
Great.
I don't think it's, covers much less than sidewalk. I mean, it's from sidewalk, the building goes right to the sidewalk.
Well, no, there's a whole parking lot behind it.
I'm not talking about parking, I'm talking about
But this-
around the corner.
This
We're talking
project-
7 Sedgwick, right? We're not talking 800 anymore.
No, 800.
Yes. Oh,
Right, 800 is also right to the sidewalks,
Yeah,
Post Road
But
and
not the-
Sedgwick.
Right, but
But
not the entire
back,
property.
not the back.
yeah.
and,
No, clearly.
and not the front plaza where they're doing Pilates.
There's a whole plaza there?
Yeah.
Okay, I was
There's
only
a
in
there's
there
a
the
black
last 10 years.
yeah, there's a black blade sign in the front. I know that's where Ruchi's Laws was when I
Right.
sold it.
Yeah.
Right
Get the
across
top
from
floor.
Morley and Lawrence is that little area.
Yeah.
I know the little area, I'm not picturing Pilates. In the front, you're talking about, the front
They,
of the
they
building?
do it on the sidewalk, yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it'd be comfortable, though. They're out
No.
there.
Oh,
I sold it once. Okay.
okay.
So that's the
Alright.
ARB. We've never done anything that matches ARB. That's site plan section, or architecture. What else you want to talk about? Size of the building, development coverage, location, area uses, facility transformers, dumpsters, external storage.
I think the transformer was an interesting conversation.
Where's the, I don't remember, where's the transformer?
They have a transformer located on the plans, but they said that they're never gonna build it there because it's in the floodplain. It's gotta go up,
Oh,
what
what a
was it,
platform.
5-6 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they needed a platform that was 6 feet wide for someone to access it, and then it needs a railing around it because it's 6 feet off the ground.
I just saw that.
And they didn't show it on the plans, so I don't know where they're planning on fitting it.
Hope they don't take it with a dog,
May very well be.
which I don't think you can walk to anyway.
I don't think so either.
My recollection was that it was a platform on the building, so it would be elevated above the flood zone.
It's, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, but you'd still
I
need
walked-
stairs to get to it.
yeah, I walked past a building the other day that had a transformer like that, and there's this aluminum platform that comes down. If the thing has a service, you have to climb up the platform, then you can service this thing. I think it was in Stanford. I forget where it's at. Where it is? It's in Pony Shackville. That's where it is, because that thing's in a flood zone, and it floods 4 feet, and that's why they built it.
Yeah, I think that was Joe Canis's comment during the hearing. I think that was one of the last comments received by the commission.
So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The size of building development coverage, we talked a little bit about that. Dumpsters are inside. I guess you gotta roll them out to Old Kings Highway North to get them.
They never said who's gonna roll them out, because the employee isn't gonna be working at 6 AM when the garbage pickup,
Right.
and they're gonna have to roll those things out a couple times a week.
I mean, they talk about, that's the whole big thing in New York City now, the doorman bring it out,
And bringing
and
them
then the
out,
garbage
hose
man.
down the sidewalk and everything. They didn't have any plan for that.
Right. I mean, when we did stuff like Ford Fishery and the butcher shop and all that stuff back there, there was a whole plan on that. You know, times and opening, we did the same exact thing for the chicken store, remember the chicken store guy?
Yep, because the neighbors from Chipotle complained about the dumpsters being
Oh,
picked
yeah.
up at like 8 in the morning, so we had the chicken make sure it said some weird hour.
And the neighbor didn't want doors on the front of the
Don't-
dumpster.
Yeah, but we,
Because they were gonna be left open.
they
or
let,
something.
yeah, it looks like crap from Chipotle.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I could say about the dumpsters is there's no doors at all, which is not at this part of it, but was a concern of mine, is that the parking garage is essentially open to the public in many different ways, and one of those ways is the door main door where the dumpsters are. So I guess the garbage men, in theory, will have rights to walk into the private space and pull them out, but they didn't really address that in any way.
The other thing that they have, just given the same theme, is I think in the plans they drew like 16 or 8 dumpsters. Those land up being the plastic ones on
Yeah.
wheels that the top comes over. So if you flood 4 feet of water, you're gonna have plastic
Floating away.
dumpsters floating all over the place. I mean, if they had steel ones that were on, 2 of them, it'd be a different story, but I don't think you want 16 plastic things that say recycling things floating around if it
All
floods.
garbage inside of it.
Right, and they said, oh, I can move the cars, tell the people where you're gonna move those things to.
Unclear.
External storage, did they have any external storage, or was it just a bike
I
rack?
think they talked a little bit about bike racks. I don't remember how many exactly. I don't think there was any storage room in the, I'll call it the first level, the parking garage level, whatever you want to call it. So I don't remember anything specifically other than the bicycle racks or bicycle storage on the first floor.
Okay.
I don't know, Adam, do you even remember if there were bicycle racks?
You
They
had
w-
bike- you had bike
They
rack,
weren't
yeah.
gonna put them in because they would have to eat up a parking spot. That's my notes from Attorney Maslin.
So you'd have to bring your bike upstairs.
Yeah, as we talked about that.
Generally, if you go to the apartments in Stanford and let's say, what is that area called? I'm drawing a
Harbor
blank.
Point.
Harbor Point.
Or postmark is and all those?
Yeah, inside of those parking garages, they usually take up 2 or 3 parking spaces on each, in a corner, far, the least desirable parking spots, but they take out 2 parking spots and then they put the racks in, people leave their bikes there, locked up, go up to your apartment. This way you don't have to lug it up into your apartment, bikes are kind of bulky and awkward.
Scratch the walls of the
Yeah.
apartment and the
Bring it
elevator
down.
cab. Okay, I mean, and those are, like, the postmark's a bigger building, it's 200 units. This is 22, but.
But still, if
Same
you're
concept.
marketing these towards younger people, they're gonna have bicycles, especially in Darien, and there's no thought about that.
Okay, externals, we talked about that, storage, want to go to the next item, parking, loading, circulation, amount of parking? It's amazed me, we talked about this for like 20 minutes in that meeting about parking number 37.
Yeah,
And we went round and round and
they
round.
can barely figure it out themselves.
And I remember just saying, it's not supposed to be that hard. But the parking complies, I think they're, at the existing unit count and whatnot, they're over by 1, is that right?
If I
Right,
recall.
they had 39 parking spaces, and they provided an additional parking space for the leasing office, I believe, for a total of 40 parking spaces.
And they have the loading parking space, which is in the flood zone, which is in the right of way,
The right-of-way of, correct,
right?
yeah.
Which the sidewalk, like, I guess goes around it. So the amount of parking conforms. Walkways, sidewalks, entrances and exits. I guess there's a way to get out to the dog park in the back, that's covered. We don't know about that one parking space number 37. The
You
walkways,
said the parking conforms?
they have 1 extra.
I thought it only conformed if we changed the regulations.
It does conform to,
Yeah, you're right, be
We'll
right.
double check
yeah,
that.
we'll double check that as well.
Staff-
Yeah, that was my
Double check.
understanding.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They wanted to change the regulations because they didn't conform.
Right. I think you are right. Because they assume they got A,
Correct,
without A, you can't get B.
correct.
Okay, traffic considerations, stop bar, shoulder striping on Sedgwick. They said all that stuff was, copacetic and the traffic wasn't gonna change that much. I was just asking if they went to the legal traffic authority to get it signed off on. I guess the answer was they were silent. Is the legal traffic authority looked at it and didn't make a comment, so that meant by de facto it was an approval. Right, because I said, do they know they're putting in those lanes and whatnot? And they said, well, we signed the plans and nothing came back.
They didn't send any comments back.
But this area, I will just make note, is where we clearly heard the most from the neighborhood residents. Their concerns was mostly centered around traffic.
And
Conditions and patterns there.
And I think people have done it both ways, get in and out of the shopping center. You know, I mean, yeah, there's that circle roundabout that's, I mean, I never heard that before, that people don't go around the roundabout, they go the wrong way. I never heard that one before.
Well, if you're traveling west, you don't have to stop. So if I'm traveling from Trader Joe's to go into Goodwives, I go around on Sedgwick, and then I can go right onto Sedgwick. I can go around and go straight and go into the parking lot, or I can go around the thing and go into Stop and Shop, and everybody stops for me.
Yeah.
On Sedgwick, right in
It's
front of
kind
this
of
building
unsafe.
is a stop sign. On going into Goodwives, if you're coming from the other direction, like you're coming off the post road by the pizza place, you have a stop sign. But if you're coming the other way, you're free to do whatever you want, and everybody just waits. It's a really funky stop.
Yeah, I thought they had proposed putting in a stop bar there, which I think was actually
A
an
good idea,
improvement.
yeah.
there's definitely
And I
something.
think narrowing that aperture on Sedgwick was a good idea.
Great.
I think actually the markings were spot on.
Yeah, they did that in the post road, where you, once you get past Halsted, or whatever it is now, that's when it narrows down, and it makes you slow down. George, thoughts on that at all?
Yep, I'm with you.
I mean, the only thing we have to consider too, which is not part of this, but when I was just there yesterday, going grocery shopping, the parking lot for the train station, which previously was very sparse behind the post office, behind the fire station rather, was very sparsely populated. Now it is totally full. So if we're going to be adding, essentially, they're saying most of the residents are going to try and go out probably through that lot onto that little stoplight there, right, left, right by the fire station. That is a much shorter light than it is going on the post road. We're going to be adding a significant amount of traffic through that area, which is a very awkward parking lot to drive through. It's not a straight shot. You got to go around a bunch of things to discourage people from using it as kind of a cut through.
That's what you guys were saying, it was called a cut through. I never cut through that in 20 years.
Everybody uses it as a cut through. The pizza place, all the guys use it because it's quicker, because instead of going up Sedgwick and making a left and then having to deal with all the Starbucks traffic,
Right.
you go by the fire station and you make a left and you eliminate probably 5 minutes of sitting on the post road because those lights aren't aligned.
You go out that one entrance, which back to it's at Brookside or Mansfield, that one?
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
the Mansfield one. Because Starbucks has become such a nightmare.
Right.
People trying to go left out of Starbucks, which is a totally disaster, or trying to make a left into Starbucks.
So what you're saying is they're encouraging people to cut through the parking lot?
Much more will go that way. I think the
Trucks
increase,
too?
I share the neighbors' concerns that traffic is bad on Sedgwick now. This will certainly, even though the engineers said it won't, this will make it worse. And that will encourage people to go that way, which is even worse.
No, as a planning and zoning commission, you're allowed to use your own observations, even though they may conflict or they may contradict what a professional says.
Yeah.
I mean, we did the same exact thing on 7-Eleven. Anything to add to that, Amy? But I do want to get on to the next
Yeah.
items. and
No,
finish
I
this.
just want to add that I don't see the fire marshal absence of comments on this application at all and on this blue sheet, so I want to make sure that doesn't get
Yeah.
lost.
We'll hit those next time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Can we stop there?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's 5 to 10. We still have a couple more things to do,
Yeah.
Yep,
so.
we'll continue this.
Okay, and I want to make sure when we do it, Jeff falls here one of those nights.
Yep.
All right. Okay, next item on the agenda, business site plan application number 234B as in boy, special permit application number 236A, Grove Street Plaza LLC, Harvest Restaurant Group at 14 Grove Street. This is the new steakhouse that's gonna go into the old melting pot location. They came to us to be able to use the plaza and the fountain and all that stuff. I forget the number of seats they wanted on the original one. It was the original.
It looks like, my notes, I could be wrong, 25 tables, 68 seats?
No, the original.
Original?
Because
114.
my statement was that there were more seats outside the restaurant than were inside the restaurant, taking away the bar seats. And the bar had like 20. Yeah, that's probably it. I mean, that looks like the design, but it was a piece of paper where it had the number of count. My eyes are shut, I can't read.
I also have on this, and my apologies if I don't know this and I should, is that we were waiting for the selectmen to answer that.
Yeah, right. Correct, I mean, that's what, we punted this once,
Yes.
because they had not gone to the selectmen or the ARB.
Yes.
But I think what's happened to date is I think the applicant has spoken to Jeremy, and that's where I think they would be amenable to us backing down the number of seats on the plaza, or shrinking the plaza, or something like that.
Right, I see here in the application submittal, they talked about 43 tables and 114 seats overall throughout that plaza, some adjacent to one building, some adjacent to the other building, et cetera. So I see that here in the application submittal.
Yeah.
So I think during the hearing, the commission talked about cutting it back.
Milton Pod had 164 seats inside, and then Roots were proposing 120 inside, 114 for a total of 224. That's what I have in my notes.
My big thing, and I made it blatantly clear, I think it's short term, is
And-
I like outdoor seating, I think it's fantastic. I've never seen a restaurant that has more outdoor seating than indoor seating. So I would like to encourage the outdoor seating, I just don't want 164, whatever the number is. But if they can cut it back, if they made it to Jeremy, amenable to you, somewhere, 60, 65 seats, I'd say yes to that. And yeah, we talked about the plaza and all that stuff,
So
and
you want to cut it in half?
pretty much. Not to 60, they asked for 120, go to 60, go to 65.
Well, so we learned a bunch about the easement in the letter from council, and both our council and Maslin. So we know that we can control this easement area, right? And if we want to give up any of the control of that, we need the selectmen to weigh in on that.
That's correct.
So, maybe, do we want to give up control of the whole right-of-way? I mean, I was talking about removing the seats on the Grove Street side of the fountain.
Right,
And
in front of the fountain.
in front of the fountain, over, what, 3 rows that they've got there, something like that?
Right. Right here this is that concrete wall, right?
Uh-huh.
So people so these 2 tables sit right in front of that concrete wall where it's got the bluestone seat on it. So I think that's a deuce and these are 2 4s. So I think you're talking about those, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think at least those, yeah. And I probably would include the 2 next to them.
I think
So
you
they've
push the
still
whole
got-
thing that way.
Okay, I mean, I understand why they would want the 2 rows closest to their building.
But that's what he said is, this is allowed because that's their property.
Yeah, okay.
This is their property and that's their property, which is
Alright,
all this
okay.
front here, all this front here.
Alright.
These 2 were gonna go away because it blocks some door or some ADA
Right.
thing. And then these 2 were gonna go away.
Because that's the entrance to the apartments.
Correct.
Okay,
They wanted to shift the plaza too, the public plaza, as part of the application, right?
Yeah, I think, I think that was a concept. I don't think it was in the application
Oh, was
process.
it?
Yeah, they raised it as a possibility, I don't think they presented
Okay.
anything.
Me personally, I don't really care where they go, but if they get it down to 60, 65 seats and 25 tables or something like that. How many tables are they now? They're 45?
43
43.
for
The
114.
proposed outdoor seating consists of 35, 43 tables, 114 seats.
Yeah, she says it. Amy, what do you think?
I hope David doesn't get mad at me, but.
Yeah, I think I must be missing a letter. Did we, because you just referenced a letter
Yeah.
from council?
Oh, it came in
It was
email.
email.
It came in, it
Okay,
was,
so I
yeah.
did not see that, so I
There's a 14-page letter from Mazza,
I
which
did not
includes
see
the
it.
reference
I
stuff.
was, and my apologies, I was at a funeral all day, so I
That's
did
okay,
not
sorry.
catch any emails.
And then there's a,
That's
then there's a
okay.
response from,
Okay.
there's a
Town
response from Patty, how do you pronounce her?
Gog.
Gog?
Mhm.
Right.
But that's, I think, that's saying that we have no jurisdiction at all, so either you can get down that
What
road.
Bob is saying, that's, Bob Maslin's argument was, the recent state change in the state statutes is if people are working on their property, outdoor dining is allowed for every restaurant. Patty Gog disagreed and said, well, in this case, there's this plaza with an easement. She disagreed with Bob's take on the whole thing. So, but as we discussed during the hearing, the selectmen will need to approve something in the easement area. So I think what they're waiting to do is get a feel from the commission
Okay,
in terms of what's gonna be amenable,
okay.
and then the applicant can get the wheels in motion in terms of getting formal approval from the Board of Selectmen,
Mm-hmm, okay.
ARB, and at least going back to their potential tenant and saying, okay, we got X amount of seats, X amount of tables, generally in this location, we can get off and running.
And you were
Yeah.
saying they're amenable to reducing their request of 114 seats to 60, is that what you're saying?
60, 65, I think.
65.
Yeah, somewhere
So
in
they'd
that range.
officially asked for that change? Or
I
they
think
softly said?
softly
we're-
said.
I mean,
Okay,
like,
okay.
we look at buildings, and say, okay, you want to build a 3-story
Yep,
building, we
yep,
knock it down to
yep,
2 stories.
yep,
They
yep,
want,
yep,
you know,
Okay. Well, the 60 would certainly be much more manageable to accommodate elements of the public plaza that we have, that the public has come used to enjoying.
and I got a stinking suspicion, I don't want to fight the fight between lawyers and saying what's applicable, what's not applicable, and go down that road. I think that's just a colossal waste of time. And I think the applicant wants to get his tenant going and say, we got you 65 seats outside, which went for 114,
Mhm.
is that cool? I mean, they already started construction. Oh, wait, you look in the window, it's got it, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay. Okay, so I just think we should
Keep the front.
preserve the,
I
keep
think
the
there
front.
there should be some way for the public to
Yeah.
access the plaza, the fountain,
Yeah.
all of the time.
Okay.
So
Right.
I'm fine, outdoor seating, I'm okay with even higher than 60. I think 114 and their diagram seemed slightly aggressive, to say the least. But as long as they keep the front of that plaza accessible, I don't really have any reason to care where how many seats they try and jam in there.
Do you care if it's the front side or back, if this whole side's empty or the back side's empty?
I'd rather see the Grove Street side of it. I'm with George of that bit, because I think the back end is really not heavily used at night at all. But I think the front end of it, especially with Corbin District coming in, people will see that fountain. That fountain, you look down the street, it draws you into it. People will walk down there. And if they get to it, then they see tables right on the other side of that wall. They'll think, I can't even, this is just the restaurant space. I can't even go in here. And that's not true. And so we don't want to discourage that, especially because the only reason the building is allowed to be there now is because that plaza was built.
Hence, flip back to 7 Sedgwick.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so, I would suggest, it sounds, Mike, did you make a comment that you?
I didn't, but I have no problem with what was proposed.
So you don't care if it's 114 or if it's 14?
I think that they've got a good operator. The gentleman who spoke was just amazing.
Great, he was
You
a
know,
very nice guy.
Family first, put your phones down, turn the TVs off, like all positive messages, right? So I don't think this guy's looking to screw up a community.
Great,
So I defer to his judgment.
okay,
He knows how to operate his business. He
Right.
doesn't want to do anything to make anyone unhappy, so.
great. Okay,
So that's
so
just me.
it sounds like we're writing up an approval of this,
Okay.
okay, an approval subject to, it's definitely subject to,
Yeah, now has it become
Board
a
of
chicken or
Selectmen.
egg problem? Like, do the selectmen won't do anything until we approve it, or will we not do anything until?
well,
You know what I mean?
think,
Who goes first?
we're saying
We go
that we're
first.
gonna
We go
approve it
first?
subject to,
Okay.
by the time we get our draft, They
Yeah.
might have already met them. The other thing, ARB is definitely gonna look at this at some point in time.
Right.
They look at every single outdoor seating thing,
Yeah.
right? There's no catenary lighting, there's no lighting that they're putting out there, so that doesn't matter. So it's eventually, by the time we sign off on it,
Should be approved anyway.
it should be either approved or disapproved by somebody.
Yeah.
But remember, all this stuff here,
We can't
which is,
judge. The two
they can
sides,
put it there anyway.
yeah, that's by right.
Yeah. So
Both
you're
sides.
talking about four people, you're talking about 2 4-tops and 2 deuces out of the whole shooting match?
I would say 4 deuces,
But these 2 deuces and,
and these two.
yeah, if that whole side goes away, I'd be
Yeah.
happy to claim with that.
This whole side?
I mean, the thing that always made me odd to me is the dudes that got this table over here, you know, the waiter's coming out there.
Yeah, I don't think, is that for this shop?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so that's 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 fewer seats.
This is 4 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, plus those.
14,
Those go.
16.
Yes, okay.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Do you want to see this map?
Yes, I would like to see that.
Yeah. So Fred and I will start working on pulling together a draft for the commission's review, probably meeting on, I guess, 27th.
Okay. All
At
right.
least the applicant can start getting on other people's agendas.
I'd say that P and Z is signing off on it, but not for 114 seats.
Okay.
A number
Great.
smaller than that, 60, 65, something like that. All right, next item on here is landfilling excavation regrading application number 543A. Michael Michaud at 142 near Water Lane, proposing to excavate and regrade portions of the property to accommodate construction of additions to the existing single-family roads and create a level yard, rear yard, and perform related site development activities. This is the site that's under construction already.
I'm recused from this.
You can stay there, you don't have to.
Yeah, I'm going to.
It's under construction already. They have a new lawyer that came in, which Mr. Leiden, from Stanford. He is, got his arm, I mean, I personally know him for years. He got his arm around something, he's gonna make sure it's gonna do okay. Everything was copacetic. It's, you know, it looked good from what I saw.
They pulled the porch on the roof too, for people's memory, or the seating area on the roof. They were gonna
It's
pull
all
on at the
down.
neighbor's request.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that somebody else, well, we can't put that on the land rate, we can put that in the resolution.
Yeah.
Right.
Do
Well,
we,
When was this first presented? Because I don't have,
Last week.
Last
May
week.
30th.
Yeah,
there's a
you
reason
were-
why I have no recollection of this.
You with Anna.
Okay, yes, I have not watched the Vimeo. I need to watch the
You
video.
were hanging out with your daughter in Nantucket.
Shush.
Good for her. I wish I was in Nantucket with my daughter. Mike, anything on this one?
No.
George?
I'm recused.
Oh, you're good.
the only thing is, because I agree, I think it'll be fine now, but because they've already they already have 1 strike against them, do we want to put into the resolution any type of monitoring or site visits just to ensure compliance, so we don't get a 2nd strike, even
When
though
was the first strike?
They-
The building without a permit.
they started building the whole house without a permit. They excavated it, they started building it,
Stop work order.
stop work order, the whole thing.
Okay.
Yes,
These
I had
guys,
to-
these guys, that's.
I know they'll go out and do it, but do we
Zoning
just want to
enforcement?
formalize it in some way? I mean, I don't care. I agree with Steve. I think that the lawyer who spoke is certainly not going to allow that to happen again. So it's not a large concern of mine, but I'm always, whenever we've seen a couple of the strike 1s and we've seen a couple strike 2s as well. So, just want to make sure that we don't ever get to a 3rd strike, or, because if it happens, once we already know about it, I'm always like a little bit more hesitant to just trust, because they've already fouled us once.
Do you want to have the architect or email or project managers, architect or engineer or project manager send an email in once every 2 weeks?
Yeah, it has been suggested that a site monitor be implemented to make sure that the remainder of the construction period is carried out in conformance with the plans that have been approved by the commission. And I think it probably
If you could do that, that's fine. I would just have an existing person that's on the project.
Yeah, we don't need an independent monitor. We can
Right,
have the
right.
engineer that they've hired, that's
Right.
fine. We've done that
Yes.
before.
You add that, fix that in.
Yep.
Anything else?
Otherwise,
Good.
we're good.
We'll aim
Okay.
for the 27th.
Fantastic. Thank you. What else? We have it,
Camp.
next item here is 53 Camp Avenue. We have a draft resolution in our hands.
Very small.
This is the guy that's building the wall next to the people, the Paciones, it's on the bottom of the wall. He gave us this landscaping plan, he did everything he said. Questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one? I've driven by the guy's house a bunch of different times.
I'd say, I only noticed on page 3, it's when you go to architectural and landscape plans, plans generally entitled, and then there's a random apostrophe, site improvements.
Yes, backwards, you mean?
Yeah.
Whoa.
You've got
Okay.
the right one at the end of Darien, you just have the wrong one before site, or it's pointing left and it should be pointing right. But other than that minor typo, that is the only one I found. I mean, if you look down below in sediment, and the only reason I noticed it was because in sediment and erosion controls, condition A does have the right one. So I checked to see if you had it everywhere, but you do have it right in other places.
Yeah, I want to check the dates on this. It says 2022.
Yeah, I
And
saw
I think
that.
it's correct, because I think 2022. Remaining
I
plans.
mean, we're not at June 20th in 2023 yet, so that's why I assume those were
No,
right.
that's what they're dated, believe it or not. Proposed sections A102 is dated June 20th, 2022. Site plan A101, March 3rd, 22. So I guess he's,
The updated one.
yeah.
But other than that trivial error, I found
Landscape
no
plan.
typos.
Okay, I got a motion to approve with that scrivener's error comes from Mike, second comes from George, all in favor?
5-0. Thank you.
Okay, deliverance discussion only on the closed hearing on the 6th. Can we just talk about that lady with the nail salon? Or
Yeah.
what's
Yep.
the jewelry thing?
Put that
You
in
okay about
there.
that?
Looks good.
Right, you okay with that? The 220 square foot jewelry maker? George?
All good.
You're good.
Okay, great. We'll aim for next week on that.
Yeah, that's
I was
what,
thinking the same thing.
I thought the exact, is there a way that staff can just handle those?
Yeah.
I mean, I know
It's a
there's special
Well,
permit.
that building's been an issue for months now.
Yeah, this just
Okay,
seems like,
We'll get that going next week.
I just have
Keep her
a
moving.
quick chairman's report that I want to give to you guys. It's really going to be handouts. I was on top of a lot of stuff this weekend. You guys should take one of these things. I talked a lot of stuff over the weekend with regards to all this stuff that's happening up in Hartford. With all the laws and whatnot, the Hartford session, I guess, up there is ending this week or today or tomorrow or something like that. The thing that got passed and didn't get passed, this is the letter that went out too. The thing that got passed and didn't get passed was the fair share document. This, that's on the- is the fair share proposal. The other chairman.
Not passed?
Well, it got passed and didn't get passed. The other chairman that I work with, and the guy who is the leader of Westcott, Francis Pickering, I talk to those guys all the time. Anyway, the point is that they're following all this stuff. The fair share bill got pulled, I'm gonna say Friday at 4 o'clock. And they dropped it, and the chair, the leader of the House, or the majority leader of the House, said we're dropping it. The guy's name's Mr. Rojas. He said he dropped it, and then the people that put this thing together, which is Open Communities Alliance, sent out a press release saying that, we can't believe that it's not gonna make it on the floor. And it got dropped, and it was a kind of a lousy press release. I didn't print a copy of that. Me personally, in the letters that we wrote, which is a copy of the letter that you have that went out to our senators, said we're really not in favor of fair share for a lot of reasons. The thing that I just want to make sure, the reason why I've been so adamant about this stuff, if you look on this piece, this moratorium thing that I gave you guys, this is a document that Jeremy and me and Sini put together going back, I don't know, since 2000. In town, we have built and approved on the bottom 892 multifamily units since 2020, which is really dates back to the first one that was built.
Since
which is
2000.
Avalon. Yes, 2000. So it was a 20-year look back. We did this with the 20-year look back, and Jamie was first selectman. So it took us 20 years plus now to build 892 units. The Open Alliance Fair Share Housing Bill changes all the time. I pulled a document which is from 2020. If you flip to the last page or second to last page on here, Open Alliance wants us to build 1,911 units. Is our gross permissional share, and our fair share is 1,271 units. I don't remember, but I think these guys can tell us. There's two questions on this. I think this is in 5 years, that you have to build it, and if you're not in compliance, according to the bill that went through, or that didn't go through, but it's gonna go through, it has to be in 5 years, and if you don't do it, there were penalties, and you can get sued by people. This document, which is, I'm handing you, is from revised May 2021, so it's already 2 years old. It's changed a little bit, but the order of magnitude has not changed. What happened with this fair share bill, at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning, they took the fair share bill, they changed it a little bit, and they made it an amendment to another bill that's got nothing to do with housing. And so now it was an amendment buried inside another bill. So we are now subject to fair share if it gets passed by the Senate, is my recollection. The difference is the first bill that was dropped and put down was automatic. The second bill that put forth said that they're gonna study the fair share housing and set up experts and it says experts and activists and other people to do it. So we spend a lot of time on this stuff. I know Fred spends a ton of time on this stuff. Jeremy, helped craft this letter that you have. I spend a lot of time on it. There's been a suggestion that the Planning and Zoning Commission should hire a lobbyist to fight all this stuff or get their hands around this stuff. I'm not going there. But elections matter, and what happens at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday going into a Saturday, I don't think that's how you run government. And in terms of order of magnitude, if it took us 23 years to build 892 apartments, of which 300 aren't even built yet, it's really only 600. We have 300 now in the hopper, and they want us to build another 1,200 something. That's gonna change the entire town. So these guys are on top of it, I'm on top of it to an extent. I mean, I do have a day job and I don't stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night watching this stuff. Do you guys have anything else you want to add at all?
So this is a study at this point. What's effectively been passed is that,
Well, I don't think anything's been passed yet.
okay,
And I think there's a lot of moving parts. So there's, the one that I think is still kicking around is, I'll call it the desegregate CT proposal, which talks more about transit-oriented
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
yep,
Rezoning areas near train stations and bus
Yep.
stops to a certain density, which they prescribe.
yep,
Which is the live work ride. I'm gonna interrupt if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
go
for a
ahead,
second.
go ahead.
The live work ride is a separate bill. What there was a fair share bill, there was the live work ride bill, and then there was the Rojas bill. That's what this letter that went out May something talks about, because what they want to do is combine these three bills. They end up leaving them separate. The fair share got defeated, put into as an amendment to another one as a study. Live Work Ride, I think they were discussing it today. The other person I talk to all the time is Tracy Mara, who's our rep. She's on the floor. I saw her the other night. They're going through all this stuff. But Live Work Ride, that was supposed to be 20 units per acre within a mile or a half a mile or something like that of a train station. And then they want 10% affordable housing. Everything has to have 10%. We're already at 14%, so it doesn't matter to us. The 20 units per acre, Avalon, for an example, is 9. Heights, the Heights, which is the old Allen O'Neill, is 9. Both of those are walking distance from train station. So you would double the density of Avalon and double the density of the Heights.
Yeah, so Desegregate Connecticut is reporting tonight that their House Bill 6890 is not moving forward, and that a vote will not be taken on that. It was sort of split up into 2 separate bills, that House Bill 6890 and then Senate Bill 998, which establishes funding for the Office of Responsible Growth to hire additional planners for land use type reviews, which was part of that original Desegregate Connecticut bill. That piece of it is still alive, Senate Bill 998 regarding the funding. My understanding is that's going to be voted on tonight or tomorrow, and we'll have to see what happens with that. But the main meat of the bill, House Bill 6890, is not moving forward this legislative session.
But things could change, because that's the same thing that happened with the one at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I got the email from Rojas, who's the House Majority Leader, and the press release from the woman that runs this, her name's Sarah Boggs, is that right?
Aaron Boggs.
Aaron Boggs.
Open Communities
Open
Alliance.
Communities. And there are members of Darien that are Alliance that are in this group, that they work with them, and they're on that team, or the board of directors, or something like that, but things can change,
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
No
things
doubt.
can change. Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's difficult to keep track of how all of these changes are happening in the last hour here, right? You know, things getting taken out and put someplace else, and it's almost impossible to know, you know, without an inside connection or to, you know, to the legislature what actually is happening.
So we'll know better when we meet next week.
Yeah.
So I just want you guys to know that stuff, and the general public who's ever watching or listening to know that stuff, that we're on top of it. And me personally, and I think we've talked about it ad nauseum, that we want to maintain local control. If any of this stuff goes through and someone says we have to build 1,211 apartments, the other thing I don't remember what the answer is 1,271 apartments is our fair share. I don't remember if that is the affordable number that we're supposed to build, or the total number?
I think it's the total.
It's the total, okay. At one point in time, that was gonna be the affordable units, so if it's 30% affordable, you gotta gross it up, that's like 5,000. You know, so that's and I know other people asked me about it, so I think we're good, right? It's
Yeah, we'll find
almost
out.
10:30.
As I said, this week, next day or two is going to be super important.
Any questions at this point from anybody? Comments? Awesome, okay. Director's report, anything?
Nothing,
Okay. Other 2/3 majority, nothing, right?
nothing.
And then upcoming meetings, we're off, no, we're not off
We're
next week.
meeting next week, and then we're off the 20th. Next week, we have what looks like 2 public hearings, one on Great Island, and the other, the continuation of 17 Nickerson. Those will be the 2 big hearing items. And
Great
then
Island's what, special permit or something?
For the stable, right.
Okay.
As far as I know, that's still going ahead.
Okay, I don't know.
And then we'll try to get 1 or 2 draft resolutions done.
The only last thing I have to add is the Darien lacrosse team has their semifinal game tomorrow at 4:30. It's on DAF. You can watch it on TV live from your computer at your office. I will be at that game at 4:30.
I get
Against
your motion to close.
football player. It is against Staples.
Hockey.
Hockey, I knew that. I forgot about that. All, looking for a motion to close. Mike make the motion. Anyone make a second?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Meeting's closed.
Should we keep that open to debate?
Thank you, TV 79.
It's a
Thank you,
privilege,
Chair.